Chairman, it's Emma Code, meeting producer. I can confirm it's now 10 a.m. and the meeting is being live streamed.
Thank you very much, Emma. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's meeting of the East Sub-Area Planning Committee. Before consideration of today's business, I need to outline the protocols for the meeting. Today's meeting is being live streamed to the public via Microsoft Teams and is also being recorded. When members are speaking, they may, if they wish, use their videos, but please turn them off afterwards. If the Council's live stream fails during the meeting and we cannot share the proceedings, I will adjourn the meeting so that access can be restored. If the issue cannot be resolved, I will halt the meeting and the remaining business will be concluded at a future date. If a member experiences a technical issue, I will adjourn for a short period to try and establish their connection. As I call members to speak, I will remind you to switch on your microphone. If for some reason you cannot be heard, the democratic officer will advise you. Members must be present for the duration of the discussion on each planning application in order to be able to vote. We have public speakers at the meeting today, and they will be joining the meeting by telephone. Where a member has declared a non-registrable interest, a disclosable pecuniary interest, or an interest by virtue of any trade union membership in a matter, they must leave the virtual meeting. Their departure will be confirmed and they will be invited to rejoin the meeting at the appropriate time. To confirm the proceedings or procedure for today's meeting is that members of the committee who wish to speak on any item should indicate by the raise your hand function. So if you wish to speak, use the raise your hand function, which will be monitored by the Vice Chairman, Councillor Parsons. Any members not on the committee or are unable to use the raise your hand function who wish to ask a question should indicate by typing an X in the chat box. Before we start today's meeting, I will ask the Democratic Services Officer to ask the committee members to confirm they are present as state their electoral division. If we could have the introductions to the council officers also in attendance, please. And I would point out that we will be taking a comfort break, probably at a suitable time during the meeting. So across to you, Rowena.
Thank you, Chairman. I will now call your name. Please confirm your name and your electoral division. Councillor Burden.
Neil Burden, Stoke Clemsland Division.
Councillor Lennox Boyd.
Good morning, I'm Sheila Lennox Boyd for Saltash North, Cornwall Councillor. Thank you.
Councillor Eddy.
Good morning, Martin Eddy, Cornwall Councillor for the St Clair Division.
Councillor Flashman.
Good morning, Jim Flashman, St Dominic, St Melian and Kelly Bray Division.
Councillor Fitter.
Good morning, John Fitter, Cowland, St Morgan and Newquay North.
Councillor Holly.
Good morning, Derek Holly, Saltash East Division.
Councillor Jordan.
Barry Jordan. Good morning, Barry Jordan for the Tintagel Division.
Councillor Long.
Councillor Long, Callington Division.
Councillor Simmons.
Yes, good morning, John Simmons, Penryn East and Myler.
Councillor Taylor.
Good morning, Linda Taylor, Carpus Bainley Lance.
Councillor Pascoe.
Good morning, Councillor Pascoe, Cornwall Councillor for Liscard West and of Wars.
Councillor Pugh.
Good morning, I'm Richard Pugh from the Trelawney Division.
Councillor Tamlin.
Good morning, Sam Tamlin, Saltash West.
Councillor Parsons.
Good morning, Adrian Parsons, representing the Elton Division.
Councillor Batters.
Good morning, Chris Batters, divisional member for the Llanivet Blisland Division.
Thank you. We also have Councillors Foote, Fairman and Rushworth, who are electoral division members for the meeting today. And the officers in attendance today are Davina Pritchard, Group Leader for Area 7 and 8, Gavin Smith, Group Leader, Development Management, Jonathan Luca, Principal Development Officer, James Hills, Principal Development Officer, Amy Williams, Senior Development Officer, Paul Steen, Highways Officer, Richard Hawkey, Affordable Housing Team, Vanessa Ormerod, Lawyer. Meeting producer is Emma Coe today, and myself, Rowena Brebner, Democratic Officer. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Rowena. Must be rather crowded in the lobby today with all those names. Fine. Okay, we'll start the meeting really. Then can we have apologies? Item 1 apologies, please.
Thank you, Chairman. We have apologies from Councillor May and we have Councillor Simmons substituting for her. Apologies from Councillor Craker and we have Councillor Lennox Boyd substituting for him. And apologies from Councillor Mould and we have Councillor Taylor substituting for her.
Thank you. Number 2 is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest on any of today's applications, please? No? Sounds as though there is not. So in that case, we move through to the minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of November 2020. You've all had the minutes circulated. You are aware of what's there. Could I ask for a proposer and seconder as being an accurate record, please?
I'll propose, Mr. Chairman.
So it's proposed by Councillor Jordan, seconded by?
I'll second, Chair.
Councillor Pascoe. Thank you, Jane.
Yes, thank you.
In that case, could we have a roll call as to their acceptance, please, Rowena?
Yes, I'll call your name in turn. Councillor Burden. For. Councillor Lennox Boyd.
Abstain as I was at the meeting.
Okay, Councillor Eddy.
For.
Councillor Flashman.
For.
Councillor Fitter.
For.
Councillor Holly.
For.
Councillor Jordan.
For.
Councillor Long.
For.
Councillor Simmons.
Abstain.
Councillor Taylor.
Abstain.
Councillor Pascoe.
For.
Councillor Pugh.
For.
Councillor Tamlin.
For.
Councillor Parsons.
For.
And Councillor Batters.
4.
Thank you, Chairman. That is carried.
Thank you very much. In that case, we'll start the agenda applications, and we start with application 1, which is PA 19/05565, Heckberry Barn, Vollards Lane, Hatton, Saltash. It's being presented by Jonathan Luker. Good morning to you, Jonathan.
Good morning, Chairman.
We'll pass it across to you. If you could show us your displays and we can confirm they're visible.
Yes, there they are, Chairman.
Thank you. I can clearly see them and no doubt other members can. Away you go. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, members. This application is for residential development comprising of 4 affordable 2-bed bungalows and 4 open market dwellings, which comprise a split of 2 2-bed and 3 3-bed. The application is recommended for approval as set out in the report, which is subject to conditions and the completion of a legal agreement, which you'll note picks up contributions relating to education and open space provision, or failing the completion of the obligation, as you see in the report, within a period of 6 months to refuse or go back to the chairman and divisional member should the legal agreement not be completed. The key issues with this application relate to the policy context, highways, public right-of-way, design and landscape, public open space, neighbour impact, ecology, drainage, and education contribution. So here's the application site outlined in red, the village of Hat. Obviously you can see on the plan to the east of the site. There's a closer shot of this application site and an aerial shot of the site as well. It's obviously an agricultural field at the moment. So here's the proposed block plan. The 4 affordable bungalows are at the front, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 4 open market dwellings are to the rear, 1, 2, 3, 4. A new access and pavements across the front of the site leading back into the village. This is the adjoining barn, which is sort of part being converted currently. So here's the proposed plans. These are the bungalows, obviously 2 bedrooms, an open plan living, dining, kitchen area. These are plots 5 and 6, the 2-bed dwellings, obviously 2-storey, main living accommodation on the ground floor with an integral garage and 2 bedrooms at first floor. It's plots 7 and 8, which are the 3-bed open market dwellings. Again, living accommodation on the ground floor and a garage with your bedrooms at first floor. So here's the first photo of the application site. Obviously, I've got my back to the village of Hat. This is the neighbouring barn. The application site is just in here, the other side of this hedgerow, and also you can see in the area beyond this Harris fence in here in this field just beyond. There's a slightly closer up view, so again the application site, the other side of that hedge line with the village of Hat behind me. So this is sort of stood within where the barn is just to the left over here. This is the application site, obviously a green undeveloped field at present. Now this is looking back towards the application site. Obviously you can see the village in the background. There's the barn we've looked at and mentioned, and obviously this is the application site, this area here. Just to help with a bit of context, I've sort of scanned round to the left here, so sort of looking northwards, northeastwards. You can sort of see the countryside setting we're in, which the site backs onto. So the development of the site will cause a degree of harm to the character and appearance of this area. On balance and after careful consideration, this harm is considered to be limited and is outweighed by the positive impacts of the development, particularly in contributing towards the provision of affordable housing, which represents a key priority of the council. The application is recommended for approval as set out in the report, and that's the end of my presentation. Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, you're on mute.
Beg your pardon. Our first speaker is Councillor Dave Edwards, I should say, Botus Fleming Parish Council. Are you there, please, Mr. Edwards?
Chairman, it's Emma Code, meeting producer. He hasn't yet dialed in, so if you could just give me a moment, I'll make contact with him.
Yes, most certainly, Emma.
Okay, thank you. Chairman, it's Emma Code, meeting producer. I've just spoken to Councillor Edwards. He'll be dialing in the next couple of minutes.
Thank you very much. Sorry for the delay, everyone. Obviously unavoidable from our end. Emma, I think I'm thinking of moving on to our agent.
Yeah, if you want to, the producer has now joined us, so if you want to take her first, you can do.
Sorry, that's which one has?
Debbie Newcomb.
Right, I think if we go that way, because we're sitting here, you know, a long pregnant pause, really. So Debbie Newcomb, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Hello, good morning to you.
Good morning.
You will have 3 minutes to tell us exactly what you wish about the application. You will be given a 30-second warning before the end. And if you can hold on the phone at the end of your presentation, there may well be questions coming from the members of the committee for you. So when you're ready, away you go. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you, councillors, for allowing me to speak today. I'm speaking as a planning agent, RA Rowan Co, and in support of the applicant. The applicant first approached the council in 2015 with a pre-application inquiry and received positive response that the area could be considered as an exception site. The site lies on the edge of the village and considered to be well related to the local road network and village. First application was withdrawn to enable us to provide additional information and work with the highway officer and affordable housing team to ensure that an appropriate layout and design was submitted. As part of the process, the applicant carried out a housing needs survey within the parish as there was no up-to-date information at the time. This was used as part of the viability report prepared by Mr. Andrew O'Brien. Second application was prepared based on discussions with planning officer, highway officer and affordable housing team. Amendments were carried out to the scheme following discussions with the affordable housing team based on the current need and the viability of the scheme. It can be seen that the applicant is committed to the scheme and has continued to work with the council in order to address all the hurdles that have occurred over the years. The scheme before you meets the housing needs of the parish and together with Open Market provides a viable scheme that can be delivered in a timely manner. As already stated, a great deal of work has been carried out to reach the scheme presented to you today. The development will form a natural extension to the village. The design of the dwellings all have the same external appearance to ensure that there's no differentiation between Open Market and affordable and complies with the Cornwall local plan policy. We understand the comments of both Parish Councillor and Councillor Foote, but as detailed in the Planning Officer's report, all areas of concern have been addressed. The scheme meets the overarching thread of the NPPF in terms of social, environmental and economic objectives. Most importantly, it also meets the elements of Policy 9 rural exception sites of the Cornwall local plan. The applicant is happy to engage in the Section 106 agreement to ensure that both the affordable housing is delivered together with other contributions including education and for open space. The applicant has at least 2 developers interested in purchasing the site. This will ensure the development is delivered in a timely manner and provide much needed affordable housing. This will be in line with both national and local policy. In line with the officer recommendation, we request that the committee approve the scheme. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you could hold for a moment, please. Are there any questions of the speaker, please, for clarification purposes only? Are there any questions? Nothing's coming up on my screen. Can you confirm that, Vice Chair, please?
I can confirm that, Chairman, to be correct.
Thank you very much in that case, Debbie. As you're aware,
thanks very much for listening.
As you are aware, it is on live stream, so you're welcome to continue following it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Dave Edwards, are you there, please?
Chairman, it's Emma Code, meeting producer. Councillor Edwards is on the line. He'll need to unmute his telephone by pressing *6.
Hello, Mr. Edwards, are you there? Mr. Edwards, are you there? Speak to us, please.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes,
Mr. Dave, Mr. Dave Edwards, is it?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Fine. I don't know if you could hold the phone a bit nearer to you because you are rather low voice-wise. Speak again.
Can you hear me now?
That's better. If you can maintain that, that would be most helpful. You have 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes to tell us what you wish to say. 30 seconds before the end, we will give you a warning. And then if you can hold at the end, there may be some questions forthcoming for you. When you're ready, away you go. Thank you.
Can I just say something quickly before I start?
Well, is it to do with application?
It's to do with the 3 minutes.
Yes, by all means, you can ask me.
Sir, I've had major heart surgery recently, and I've suffered from a stroke. So I'm having difficulty with my words. I might just have to go slowly than I would do.
Yeah, that's okay. We will really have to limit it, if possible, to 3 minutes. So
Okay.
can I suggest, if you think you're going to run out of time, you pick out the prime items in your 3 minutes, because it is strictly 3 minutes officially.
Okay. All right, sir. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where you go when you're ready.
Thank you. In 2018, Cornwall Council announced that the housing development target to be built by 2030 for the villages of Boaters, Fleming and Hat was reduced to nil. This was due to the parish very poor infrastructure and amenities being taken into account. The National Planning Policy Framework confirms that Hat does not meet those conditions as a sustainable community in the areas of economic and social or environment. Cornwall Council's sustainability appraisal also confirms that Hat does not meet the standards for sustainability. The proposed housing development proposes traditional 20th century structures that does not rely on sustainable and renewable energy that would limit the carbon footprint on the village's environment. The National Planning Policy Framework explains that rural exemption site is a small plot of agricultural land usually brought forward at a fraction of open market value, which can be used for housing. The only catch that the homes built must be affordable forever and are reserved solely for local people. These sites are usually relatively small and generally located. These sites exist at all, usually thanks to the generosity of rural land owners. Many rural affordable homes are built on rural exemption sites, making a vital contribution to rural housing supply. Most importantly, through community leads, these sites, through community-led development, schemes built on rural exemption sites provide the community and the landowners with a good experience, and one which often leads to a request for a second, third, or even fourth scheme delivered in the same way. This development does not fit within the above definition. We recognise the community's wishes to maintain the historic development boundary and have attempted to identify suitable sites within the parish for future residential and commercial development that could possibly have a positive effect on sustainability. The proposed development is not adjacent to the proposed neighbourhood development plan proposed for development boundary, and therefore should not be considered to be a rural exemption site. The applicant's planning statement under paragraph entitled residential amenity should that the nearest neighbour in the barn and the applicant owns is incorrect. The nearest neighbour is the house
30
opposite
seconds remaining.
the proposed development. There appears to be an attempt to manage nature in order to urbanise the village. We believe that the application would lead to further urbanisation, disruption and hedgerow habitats. The proposed development would not add anything to the infrastructural sustainability and indeed would add to the strain on the very limited resources and also add to the parish's carbon footprint. Boaters Fleming Parish Council announced
3 minutes, Chair.
emergency in
I'm afraid that's
2019.
the 3 minutes, Mr. Edwards.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of Mr. Edwards for clarification? I see Councillor Pascoe, your hand is up.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Edwards. Chair, may I ask just two questions? The first one is the emerging neighbourhood plan. Are you able to tell me at what stage the plan is at? And the second question I would like to ask is the capacity of Landau School. I understand from the report that any children from this area will have to go to Landau School. Are you able to answer those 2 points for me?
Yes, thank you for the questions. The first one about the NDP, we got to finalise and send the papers off to the inspector. However, unfortunately, the chairman resigned from the NDP before we managed to submit the papers. So we're at the stage where we've had to basically regroup, and we've also had something else happen with planning with regards to the parish, which we want to finalise before we resubmit the papers. So that's the first one, if that's okay.
Yes, thank you.
The second one, Landau School, yes, it is the nearest school, and particularly from Hat. Basically, there's no school bus anymore, so the kids, if they're not taken by parents, they have to walk. We've actually had we've been trying to get the school bus back, but we've failed to do so. The kids walk to school. It's quite a long way, and it's fairly dangerous walking along some of the country lanes. So it's definitely not ideal.
Yeah, my question was: is there capacity at that school? Are there places for many more places for children?
I believe there would be, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Fine. Are there any more questions of the speaker, please? I don't see any further hands up. Can you confirm that, please, Vice Chair?
That's correct, Chairman. And if I could also ask Councillor Pascoe to lower her hand unless she has another question, that is. Thank you.
Fine, thank you. In that case, we move on now to the divisional member, Councillor Foote. You're there, Jesse, I take it?
I am here, Chair. Thank you very much.
You have 5 minutes, Jesse, which time I will be expecting you to wind down.
Okay, thank you very much.
There you go. Thank you.
Appreciate it. So, this development, in my view, would result in the loss of some of the best and most versatile agricultural farmland in an unsustainable location. So the benefits do not outweigh the harm of approving this scheme. The economic and social benefits will be minimal. The impact on the environment is negative. The design is poor, and I see no mention of energy efficiency or green technology in this proposal. As you've heard from the chair of the parish council, in 2018, the housing target for Hat was reduced to nil, and the village was determined to be an unsustainable location by Cornwall Council. Policy 1, again, which is about sustainability, so basically it doesn't meet policy 1 as a sustainable location. The parish have highlighted that they do not have facilities for employment, education, or shopping. And actually the school from 2018 census was at about 85% capacity, if that helps Councillor Pascoe. The pub closed recently, and the post office shop operates only on a part-time basis. Policy 23, the negative impact of this development on the natural environment, the loss of mature Cornish hedgerows, loss of some of the best and most versatile arable grade 2-3 agricultural land is a significant negative and outweighs the affordable housing provision. Policy 27, due to the lack of local facilities and poor public transport links, this development fails to meet the requirements of the policy, which states that all developments should maximize the use of public transport. So these premises would be reliant on private vehicles to access services in either Saltash or Callington. I want the committee to note that the updated ecological report assesses an area that's actually much larger than the proposed development site. And in the design and access statement from the agent, it states that the scheme has been designed so that if in future an expansion of the site is needed, that estate road can be extended. So if approved, this development would pave the way for further urbanization of Hat and opens up a very large arable field for further development of this open countryside location. The committee should also note that there's another proposed development across the road, which is awaiting an officer decision, who's advised me that he's waiting to see what happens on this one before making a decision on the one that's opposite. So in summing up, basically we've got poorly designed houses, doesn't outweigh the negative impact on the environment, the increased urbanization, and unnecessary development of this greenfield location with some of the best and most versatile farmland. Without the affordable housing element, we wouldn't even be looking at this. The scheme was reduced from 12 to 8 because there weren't that many on the list at the time. We're asking for, the agent actually mentioned all the hurdles that had kind of had to be superseded to get this through. We've got requests for mitigation from various officers. Cornwall Fire Department have recommended sprinklers. I see no mention of that. So in short, and on balance, the negative aspects of this do not outweigh the positive aspects, and I would hope that the committee would refuse. Thank you.
Sorry, is that ended?
That's it, yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
I would point out with regards to the site opposite, I hope you've assured your residents that, of course, every planning application is judged on its own merits.
I haven't discussed the application opposite with any residents as of yet, only with the officer.
Okay. Right. In that case, we move now to questions of the officer. Are there any questions, please? Jane, I can see your hand up again. Over to you, Councillor Pascoe.
Yes, Chair. Thank you. I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask a question of Councillor Foote, if that's okay.
Oh, by all means, yes. By all means, you can. Yes.
It was just that, my apologies, but I didn't quite catch what he said about the school capacity.
Oh, sorry. So the school capacity, this is from 2018, Jane. It was listed at 85%. I'm not sure what that is at this point, but I certainly have residents who are scrabbling for spots at various local schools. I know Saltash has a much higher capacity than that. The other concern with Landau Primary School is it's more than 3 miles away from this development site. So there's no free school transport for any of the children that might be living in these locations. So it's a significant issue there. So the school places are very limited at present, and they would basically have to pay for their transport over to Landau School.
Yes, thank you. I do understand about transport, the school transport, as you know. It's just I'm noticing that there is, if it's a 106 contribution to education, that suggests to me that there is some form of need to accommodate more children. So
Indeed.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, next question was from Councillor Long. Did you not have your hand up, or?
Yeah, my question was for the officer rather than the
right.
member.
So no other questions of Councillor Foote, I take it. No. In that case, Andrew, if you'd like to go in with your question for the officer.
Yeah, thank you very much. My question was regarding as it's a Policy 9 site, or appears to be a Policy 9 site. I'm just concerned that whilst the number of properties seem to be 50-50, the number of rooms are not. That the open market are 3 beds and the affordables are 2 beds. So that doesn't equate to 50%. And I thought that this council agreed at some considerable time ago that Policy 9 sites were to have 50% equality throughout. And we don't just try to equal the numbers of the 4 and 4, but actually providing less accommodation for affordable, because I don't think that will be Policy 9 compliant. Could the officer advise on that?
Over to you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Chair. I think we've got an affordable housing officer that might be able to add a bit more than I will here. But I mean, I hadn't heard the 50% split did relate to bedrooms, Chairman. Land provision and sort of layout was my understanding of the 50% split in terms of A, the housing number, and B, you're looking at the sort of, the land layout and provision of the site. Obviously, this application's been assessed in some detail with our affordable housing team, and they have come out in support of it as set out in the report. So our view is that it will be compliant with Policy 9.
Andrew, did you wish
to come back a second, Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Come back very quickly. There has been a debate numerous times before, Jonathan, regarding the 50% split that we have to avoid. We should be avoiding downsizing the affordable housing on Policy 9 sites. And what we're doing with this one is, you're providing 2 houses, but you're providing 4 bedrooms when you're providing 6 bedrooms for the open market. So that doesn't make it equality. That doesn't mean that it's a minimum of 50% affordable, because it's not. So I would like to hear what maybe the affordable housing officer has said on that, because Policy 9 sites, there should be an equality of 50%, and I cannot see that on this. Thank you.
Okay, next question is Councillor Fitter. Across to you, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2 questions really, in actual fact, and one is to the officer, and then if I could ask a question to the affordable housing officer as well, if I may, sir. And my question to the officer is that Councillor Foote mentioned that the land was grade 2B. I wonder, can the officer confirm that is the case, please? Because I don't see any mention of the grade in the report. I've looked at it carefully.
I have put that plan up, Chairman and Councillor.
Yes, you can see it.
I mean, that's the land designation coming up as 3B on that intranet mapping there. So that's what it's reading as.
Right. Well, thank you very much indeed. I must have misheard what Councillor Foote had said. I thought he said it was grade 2B, the best and most versatile. So obviously that is the official description. So it is 3B. You know, I'm content with that answer. And thank you very much indeed. Is it possible, sir, to have a question to the Affordable Housing Officer, possibly after Councillor Long has asked his question?
Well, you carry on there if you like, John, whilst you've got the stage.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed. To the Affordable Housing Officer, very much on what Councillor Foote was saying, he was focusing on the number of bedrooms, and I had noticed that as well. I think it's 10 to 6. But the other thing I noticed that the design of the estate should be sort of tenant blind, in so much as that the design of the houses should be basically unidentifiable with each other, but the estate is not pepper potted. We have the open market right at the top, away from the road, whereas the affordable houses are right down near the road. And I wondered if the Affordable Housing Officer had sort of thought or considered to have the design amended to reflect more of a pepper potted approach.
Good morning. Yes, so policy 9 requires 50% of the dwellings to be, a minimum of 50% of dwellings to be affordable, plus 50% of the land take. In this case, I believe one of my colleagues assessed a scheme, and the affordable mix was based on the housing need, which is consists of 4 1-beds and 1 2-bed.
No, can I just interrupt you, sir? I don't want to be rude. You know, that was sort of being picked up by Councillor Long, and he may well wish to sort of explore that with you. It was purely the design of the estate, in so much as that the estate is not pepper potted. We have the, as I can see, unless I've totally misunderstood it, we've got the affordables down at the bottom, or is that incorrect? And I've misread it.
No, that's correct. I believe the affordables are proposed as bungalows because 2 of the housing need are over 55s. So it was thought that bungalows would better meet that need. And obviously it probably wouldn't look right if you mix bungalows in with houses, but it's not ideal that the affordables are one side and the open market the other side. I agree with that.
But would you agree then that it doesn't really share the object of the formula and the matrix we design, where the estate should be laid out in such a manner as the housing is integrated with each other and not identifiable? Because with this design, it's clearly identifiable. We have the open market at the top, and we have the social housing at the bottom.
Yes, I mean that's correct. I mean, ideally we would look to put the affordables around the scheme. It's more difficult with the smaller sites, but yes, ideally it would be more pepper potted.
Thank you very much indeed, Richard. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, very much indeed, sir.
Thank you, John. I've got Derek Holly on next. Just to pause for a second, Derek. Andrew, John made reference to you. Did you come on and you've gone off again?
Yes, I did. I'm okay now, thank you.
Oh, you're okay, fine, thank you. In that case, back to Councillor Holly, followed by Councillor Pascoe.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, Andrew partly asked my question, which it does seem to be some difference between what Policy 9 says and what the provision for affordable housing is. So I'll leave that to later. My main question is, I'd like Jonathan, please, to explain to us in terms we can understand what you mean by the proposed development is well related to the physical form of the settlement. I'm not talking about scale or character or appearance, because that's separate in the policy in our structure plan. But how do you think it's well related to the physical form of the settlement, please?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Through you, Chairman.
Yes.
I think how we've seen it, Chairman, Councillor, is I brought up the site plan there. I trust you can all see it. The red line adjoins the this barn, which is under conversion, part converted, and so in our mind, this indicates the edge of the settlement, and in that respect, we see it's a site that sits on the edge of the settlement, and in that respect, we think it's well related to the settlement because it sits on the edge, it physically touches the physical boundaries of the settlement, Councillor.
Yeah, okay, I see where you're coming from. I don't agree, but I'll deal with it later. And the second question is, Mr. Chairman, if I may, the boundary on the edge on the western edge of the proposal is very unclear in the documents what exactly is meant for this boundary, what sort of hedge line, and does it include trees, etc. Have you got any more detail on that, please?
Yes, through you, Chairman. We have covered this matter off as a part of the condition. You can see they've annotated the plan, proposed hedge to western boundary of the site. The ecology report also picks up on this regarding the loss of the hedgerow, and a new hedgerow should be provided. Within the report, condition number, one moment, I'll just bring up the report. Bear with me as I scroll down. Condition 4 looks at covering landscaping and hedgerow details. Notably, I've made sure we've added to this what is a sort of standard template of condition. You'll see sort of point 2 of that condition. Details of existing hedgerows and trees shall be retained. We want full schedules of plants, details of mixes, distribution, details of the new boundary hedge bank to the west and east of the site. So we have part of it's indicated on the plan, and as is often the case, we've looked to ensure that details suitably covered via a planning condition.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for that, Jonathan.
Thank you.
I was looking for some more detail, Mr. Chairman, from the planning officer of what the word hedgerow meant. I'll have to come back to that again later as well. Thank you very much.
Fine, thank you. Councillor Pascoe, Jane.
Yes, sorry, again, my question to the officer really is, again, it's about the educational needs and from their assessment. Can he confirm that I've got my understanding correct, that it'll actually be a contribution from only 2 properties because of the bedroom size, and it will only amount to just over £5,000 for actually improved school places and facilities?
Jonathan?
Yeah, through you, Chairman. One moment, I'm just bringing up my report. You sound like you're about right there, Jane. I just remind myself what.
Yeah, I just wanted confirmation that it's about £5,472.
Yes. Yeah. New res.
Which does not seem very much for the educational needs that are needed for Saltash Community School. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Councillor Tamlin, Sam.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I was wondering if we could get a little bit of clarification around sustainability. Both the Parish Council and Councillor Foote both mentioned that the parish is Cornwall Council decided it was on an unsustainable location in 2018 and the housing contribution was reduced to nil. So I was just wondering how we can square that with this application.
Is Jonathan? Are you there?
I'm here, Chairman. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor, can you just repeat your question a little bit? I didn't quite catch it all then.
Yeah, sure. Both apparently Cornwall Council said that this parish was an unsustainable location, or the village of Hat was an unsustainable location in 2018, and the housing contribution was reduced to nil. And I'm just wondering if you have any more information on that.
Well, starting with the housing contribution, obviously the application came in for more housing. Following negotiation with our affordable housing team, the needs and the requirement for affordable housing was reduced on the site, which is why this proposal was revised from what it was down to 8 dwellings, 4 of those which were affordable. So our affordable housing team are satisfied that while the need is low, they're satisfied that there is a need to warrant their support of this application. In terms of sustainability, I mean, we've sought to try and address this in the report, but yes, like many villages, its service provision is limited, and it does rely on using larger service centres for many of those other needs. That's a negative aspect of the application, but Policy 9 doesn't sort of set out a minimum requirement for service level provision for exception site development. So it's about balancing out that housing need against a sustainability argument and the lack of services in the village. And it is a tricky one, and it's not ideal, the service level provision in the village. That's not uncommon with many villages, but we've sort of sought to balance those considerations up, and in this case we think approval of the application is justified, hence we've reached the conclusion we have. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you very much. Derek, your hand is still up, but I take it you've left it up by accident?
Mr. Chairman, there's something I wish to add again.
Yes, certainly.
Question to Jonathan. Jonathan, if you look at plot 4 on the application, which is you can see it's up there. Don't you think that plot 4 is too close to a hedge line and possibly a tree line? It looks like it's about 6 or 7 yards away, which is not very far. Had you considered this?
Plot 4, so this plot here,
yeah,
very close to the boundary hedge.
Yeah. If the boundary hedge develops trees, then there will be calls subsequently for those trees to be removed, which, as I'm going to point out later, may make an important part in making this scheme acceptable.
Yes, I mean, this obviously there's no boundary hedge there at the moment, and we've conditioned for one to go there. I mean, in my view, no, I think its position is okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. No other hands up. Vice Chair, can you confirm that, please? No other questions for the officers?
I can confirm that, Chair. We just have the officer with his hand up.
That's right. If you could drop your hand and drop your diagrams as well, Jonathan, please, for the next part of the meeting. Appreciate it. And of course, the next part of the meeting is the open discussion debate. So who would like to start the ball rolling, please? Don't all rush at once, guys.
Yeah, Jim
right.
Flash, yeah.
Councillor Holly is first, Councillor Flashman, and you can follow up.
Thank you very much.
As no one else will, Mr. Chairman, I'll kick off. I've got 3 concerns about this application. My major concern is the interpretation of Policy 9, because I think it's a very, very weak justification in this particular case for allowing this application. When I queried Jonathan about it, it seemed that the only real physical attachment is at the barn, which has its own little field attached to it. So I'm very doubtful that this is properly attached to the existing settlement. It does say in the, and I'm reading it now from Policy 9, they have to be well related to the physical form of the settlement, right? The scale, character and appearance is separate to that. There's an and in between, so it's quite clear that the relationship to the physical form is really important to this application. And this is where I think this application falls down. I don't think, in my opinion, Mr. Chairman, the attachment by the partially converted barn conforms to Policy 9. So even on that, I don't think I can support it, Mr. Chairman.
Can I interrupt you a minute, Derek? Would you like a chance for Policy 9 to be explained perhaps more fully by Jonathan or Davina, just to get this one sorted before we proceed?
I'll come back, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, Davina or Jonathan or Gavin, would one of you like to come on board just to clarify what Derek is raising, Councillor Holly's raising, please?
Yep, certainly, Councillor Batters. So you all know clearly the wording of condition 9. There are a number of factors to it. Obviously, clearly the first part of the policy relates to development proposals on sites outside of but adjacent to the existing built-up area of smaller towns, villages and hamlets, whose primary purpose is to provide affordable housing to meet local needs. They must be clearly affordable housing led and well related to the physical form of the settlement and appropriate in scale and character. So in reaching an assessment as to whether a development accords with Policy 9, it really is a factor to consider, or it's necessary to consider all of those aspects in the round. So here we've got a site that's outside of the built form, clearly, but it is adjacent to the built-up area of the settlement, i.e. in officer's opinion, it's adjacent to the barn that's being converted residentially and the curtilage associated with that barn. And similarly, moving on to the other aspects of it, is it well related to the physical form of the settlement? Officers are of the view that it is, because it does abut the curtilage for the residential barn conversion. I appreciate members may take a different view on that. There is a degree of interpretation in terms of whether it's well related. And then the next consideration is the development appropriate in scale and character. So Councillor Holly, it sounds like your interpretation of the policy is on the right lines in terms of those aspects are different aspects to be considered, but the aspects have to be considered in the round and we have to look at the whole policy. Thank you, Chairman.
Derek, I'll give you a chance to respond to that if you like, and then we'll go on to Andrew.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is, as you say, it's a matter of interpretation. I consider the fact that they are on 3 sides, and it just feels that's really important to me in my consideration. I've also got a concern about the west view, because if you look from the west, Mr. Chairman, and there's a huge amount of territory to the west which looks back towards Hat. Currently, there is tree screening all along the built form on all sides, and it then on the south side it dips down into the valley anyway. And this application does not, in my opinion, properly protect this important part of the country. I know it's not designated, Mr. Chairman, I accept that, but I think it fails in that respect. And I would rather have seen a tree band about 5 to 10 meters wide all the way down, which would in time protect this part of the country in terms of views. I'm also very concerned, Mr. Chairman, about the fact that it's not affordable led. As Andrew has pointed out quite clearly, the number of bedrooms is not just does not show this, and I think the size of the houses and the number of bedrooms shows it's not affordable led. On all those grounds, Mr. Chairman, I don't think this application is satisfactory at the moment. I think it could be in the future, but with some modifications, but at the moment I'm not in favour of it, so I'm going to propose refusal on those grounds.
Fine, okay. Andrew, you're up next.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to second the recommendation from Councillor Holly on the grounds that I don't believe it's Policy 9 compliant. For the reasons stated, I don't think it is well related to the village of Hat, and therefore just simply on that area it fails the test on Policy 9 compliance. I don't believe it's affordable housing led. I think it doesn't appear to be affordable housing led. So for those 2 reasons alone, and for the ones that Derek is, I'm happy to second that recommendation for refusal. And could I just remind you that Councillor Flashman was waiting as well?
Oh yes, beg your pardon. Jim, I'll come across to you. My apologies, Jim.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Hat suffered somewhat of a blow by having the new roundabout put in there a few years ago, and that actually narrowed down the development zone along the main road. They're talking about no public amenities. There's a garage, a post office, a mini supermarket, several buildings that are actually employing quite a few people in the engineering works. We've been down on site meeting and walked the site. I'm in favour of supporting the planning officer. This agricultural warrantage of this land is very small parcel of land. It's basically landlocked by some of the school field and some of the other development that's already there. The only thing that I do flag up that I think we ought to add an up-to-date number of how many people are actually in a Hat school and how many vacancies there are at Landau, because these two schools do work together, and although there's a minimal amount of money available to be used for education or school use, it could easily provide a minibus if need be, that people can't get their children to and from the Landau. If there is a need, I'm only saying if, because 2018 to 2020 is a very long time. People they move to different schools, and they soon free up a few places in the actual school that's there. So I'm going along with the planning officer. I think we ought to approve this. The 4 affordable houses are definitely needed in that area, and it will at least give them some respite that they will be able to live where they need to. So I'll be looking for a seconder. I propose we support the application. Thank you.
Okay, Jim, I'll come back to you if the proposal fails, but just a small point, Jim. It's only a small point, but I think I heard you say we've had a site visit, because we've not had a site visit collectively there. That's all. No. I would not wish to open doors for complaints there. You may have had a site visit, but we as a committee have not collectively. That's all. Okay, across to Councillor Fitter, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I find it's a nice imaginative scheme, but I have to say, in actual fact, that in my mind it doesn't comply with Policy 9. And I know viability is something that is looked at carefully by the affordable housing team, but I find it difficult to believe, in actual fact, that we can only get the bare 50% minimum from this site. The Policy 9 says, actual fact, that the viability to fund abnormal development costs or balance a sustainable community. Well, I don't. This is a greenfield site. You should be able to manage more than 50%. So it must be that they want to balance the sustainable community, and I'm not sure that would stack up in Hat. And I'm not at all happy with the layout of the site, because it is not pepper potted in the way that I would have expected it to do so. So, I don't think it ticks all those boxes, and I'm open to listen to other members, but at this moment in time, I'm not minded to support the application as it's set out, sir. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, John. Councillor Tamlin, Sam.
Thank you, Chair. I also want to support the refusal. I agree with the comments around Policy 9, but I am also concerned about sustainability. There is no school in the parish. They do have to walk a very long way. There was mention of a mini supermarket, post office, and yes, a garage. Well, it's all the same place. There's only one, and I'm pretty sure it's only there because of the major road that passes right by. Yeah, as I said, I just don't think it's a sustainable location, but I'm happy to support the refusal.
Thank you very much. According to my list here, we have no one else waiting to discuss anything in the debate. Can you confirm that, please, Vice Chair?
That's correct, Chairman. Thank you.
Fine. I'll go across now to Davina, if you wish, or Gavin, anyone who wishes to have a final mention here before we go in. Well, in the meantime, I'll come back to Derek and Andrew just to confirm their reasons for going against recommendations. So I'll pass it across to Davina or Gavin first.
Thank you, Chairman. So the two sort of key issues, as I hear it from the committee, relate to concerns that the development isn't truly affordable housing led in accordance with Policy 9, and also concerns that the site isn't well related to the physical form of the settlement. Beginning with the first issue, The council supplementary planning document on housing does contain a sentence which suggests that mixed tenure rural exception sites that clearly favour open market units and differentiate from the affordable housing will not be considered consistent with local plan policy. Therefore, there is potentially an argument there that members could use should they wish to refuse the application. My own view on it is that for smaller sites such as this, with a limited number of housing proposed, it can often be very difficult to pepper pot the schemes. It's similar to what Richard Hawkey suggested earlier in terms of that mix of the bungalows and the two-storey developments. There's a balance there in terms of making sure that the scheme is affordable housing led, and also making sure that the scheme is suitable in terms of the impact on the character of and appearance of the area. So that's sort of the first issue. The second issue in relation to the development not being well related to the physical form of the settlement, in my view, that may be a difficult argument to sustain because of the location of the site. If members, however, are more concerned about the impact of the proposed development on landscape character and the encroachment perhaps of the built form into the undeveloped countryside, then that may be an argument that might be more easier to sustain should members decide to refuse the application and should it be appealed. So yeah, that's probably all I would say at this point, Chairman, just to await members' more detailed reasons on it so we can work up some reasons for refusal. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Davina. Okay, back to you, Derek. And Andrew, any input you wish to put in as well? Across to you, Derek.
Thank you, Davina, for those suggestions. I think that my main concern that this is not Policy 9 compliant for the two reasons given, which is I don't think it is fully affordable housing led. Both in the way in which it's designed, the placing of the houses and the number of bedrooms. And I don't think it's Policy 9 compliant, in my opinion, because I think it goes too much into the countryside. It doesn't follow the built form of the village. In particular, Mr. Chairman, as the one I've quoted, which it's this relationship to the village. It's not well related to the village, in my opinion. It doesn't fill in the corner, etc. So I don't know how to suggest that. Andrew, have you got a better suggestion?
I think you've actually done it with your permission, Chairman. I think you your words have been excellent. I have nothing I can add to that. I just think it is not policy compliant. I don't think it's well related. I think it is separate to the built form of the village, and it goes out too much into the countryside. Therefore, those are two big parts of Policy 9 compliance that I don't think it meets. Therefore, I think on Policy 9 alone, we can recommend refusal of it. So I think we don't need to go any further than that. I just think Policy 9 is the key to this, and Policy 9 is not compliant. So in my view, I've looked at Policy 9, read the wording on Policy 9, and I just don't think it is compliant to it. So that's my reason for refusal. But I will go with Councillor Holly, who is way more superior than I am, and he will probably have a way better.
Well, he is on my screen. He's above you, Andrew. But Davina, can you put?
Isn't everybody?
Are you, Davina? For the purposes of the vote, you're able to put some meat on that.
Yep, certainly. Okay, so I would suggest something along the lines of the layout of the proposed development and the housing types proposed would differentiate from the affordable housing and would favour the open market units and would not therefore be affordable housing led and would not be well related to the physical form of the settlement, contrary to Policy 9 of the Cornwall Local Plan and the Housing SPD.
Fine. Derek and Andrew, you happy with that?
Do you have to add something, Davina, about the protrusion into the countryside, the built form into the countryside, which is a slightly separate argument?
Through you, Chairman, I think if members are wanting to go down that road, you would be looking at a second reason for refusal based upon landscape impact. I think we would look to break the reasons for refusal down. One relating to the fact members consider it contrary to policy 9, and a second reason relating to the landscape policies.
Thank you. I'd like.
Okay, you happy with that, Derek? And Andrew?
Yes, absolutely.
Fine. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Chairman, can I just clarify that my understanding of that is Councillor Holly suggesting he does want a second reason for refusal based on landscape impact?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to support that.
Fine. Okay, Davina?
Okay, so in that sense, we would suggest some wording along the following lines. So the proposed residential development would result in the encroachment of the built form of the village into the undeveloped countryside, urbanising and harming the natural character and beauty of the area. The proposed development is therefore contrary to policies 1, 2, 12 and 23 of the Cornwall Local Plan.
Fine. Okay, it seems to nailed that on the head. Okay. Unless Derek and Andrew have any other things they wish to say, we will go across to Rowena to take the vote, please. This will be a roll call vote.
Mr. Chairman, that was just the word for the second reason, wasn't it? You haven't got the wording for the first reason.
Yes, you gave that previously, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you
Yes, you did give that one previously, yeah.
Yes, that's right. I thought it was. So across to you, Rowena, please, for the vote.
Okay, so it's proposed by Councillor Holly, seconded by Councillor Long, that the application be refused. When I read your name, please indicate whether you wish to vote for, against or abstain the proposal. When I read your name, Councillor Burden.
I support the refusal of this application.
Councillor Lennox Boyd.
For refusal of this application.
Councillor Eddy.
For refusal.
Councillor Flashman.
Against refusal.
Councillor Fitter.
For refusal.
Councillor Holly.
For refusal.
Councillor Jordan.
For refusal.
Councillor Long.
For refusal.
Councillor Simmons.
For refusal.
Councillor Taylor.
For refusal.
Councillor Pascoe.
For refusal.
Councillor Pugh.
For refusal.
Councillor Tamlin.
For refusal.
Councillor Parsons.
Against.
And Councillor Batters.
For refusal.
So this application has been refused by 13 votes to 2, Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Can I be recorded, please, Chairman?
Yes, by all means. You've got that, Rowena? Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. If it's okay, unless anyone wishes to stop now, I was thinking of following on with the second application and possibly looking at a break after that one. Has anyone got any reasons they wish to have 5 minutes for? No, everyone okay to carry on? Lovely. In that case, our second application is PA 20/07488, Land West of Trudar, Trewint, Aldernon, Lawson, being presented by James Hills. Across to you, James.
Thank you, Chair. This up on my screen.
Yes, we can see your display, yeah.
Okay, so this is an outline planning application with all matters reserved for later consideration for a proposed local needs affordable dwelling, a single dwelling. It's a resubmission of a previous application that was refused in January this year. So the key issues in this case relate to its planning history, the principle of development, and the potential impact that the dwelling might have on the character and appearance of the AONB landscape. So here we have the location plan showing the proposal site and its relationship with Trewint. A slightly more zoomed in site plan showing the context of the site and its relationship with the edge of the settlement. This is a policy 9 application. Here we have the aerial view from Google. We have, this is all matters reserved, but there is an indicative block plan showing the type of dwelling that could be accommodated at this point. So we've got some photographs here of the site looking out west. This is stood approximately in the middle of the of where a dwelling might be positioned on the site. So looking out west. This is the field gate, existing entrance into the site, and it's really the section just beyond where the gate on the floor, the telephone mast, just in this section here. This is the boundary hedge. The field gate entrance is just on the left of your screen. So that's the existing boundary hedge, and the lane looking back towards the hamlet. And this is coming from the other direction, looking back from Trewint towards the application site. The road winds around this corner, and you carry on past this corner, and in on the right is the application site entrance. This is just a bit further down that lane before you get to that corner, just showing the rural context of this site. Final photograph. This is taken from the lane, looking back into one of the fields, which is actually closer to the village than the application site. So the application site sits on the other side of these trees on this boundary hedge here. So this is an open field that separates the village from the application site area. So in terms of our balance of considerations, we accept that there's a local housing need for a single dwelling in this area, which has been demonstrated and it's gone through our affordable housing team. But we feel that the harm caused by further incremental growth of additional housing in the AONB on a plot that isn't well related to the settlement outweighs those benefits of providing that single affordable locally tied dwelling. So for the reasons set out in the report, the application is recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, James. We move now to our first speaker, who's Christopher Bloomfield of Altrincham Parish Council. Are you in attendance, Mr. Bloomfield, please?
Chairman, it's Emma Code, meeting producer. I've just spoken to Mr. Bloomfield and he's just about to dial into the meeting.
Thank you very much, Emma. Hello, might that be Mr. Bloomfield? Hello, are you there? Are you there, Mr. Bloomfield?
Yes, I am.
Hi, good morning to you. Welcome on board.
Good morning.
You have 3 minutes to tell us your support for this application. We will give you a 30-second warning before the end. So it's away you go when you're ready.
Okay. Neil and Lauren were born in the parish and have lived there in the parish, worked there locally, and are really hoping to stay. And furthermore, their parents and grandparents lived and ran businesses in the parish. And in Lauren's case, I remember a great-grandfather from my childhood. I appreciate that you as a council take on government guidelines as to the need for housing and impact on neighbourhoods. But in these unprecedented times, I think a more local and wider vision is needed, which may not follow the general plan. Every little glimpse of employment and the chance of some light at the end of this very dark and uncertain tunnel has to be a bonus, surely. And finally, as you can see, this application by design alone is going to be a very affordable, modest home, not some 4 to 8 bedroom palace to dispose of excess income. I think for Neil and Lauren to want to start this project, which is probably the biggest event in their young lives at the moment, is very encouraging and deserves all the support and merit available. That'll do for now.
Thank you very much. If you hold for the moment, so there may be a few questions. Councillor Long, I see you have a question of the speaker for clarification.
Yes, thank you very much. Good morning to you. Are you speaking in a personal capacity, or are you speaking with regard to what the parish council have decided? Did you have a vote on this? Because it sounded quite a personal view, Is that reflective of what the parish council have said?
That it is partly personal, and it sort of reflects the feeling amongst our parish council as to the way things are going.
Yeah. Have you had a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting to discuss this? And did you make a resolution on this one?
Whatever was submitted at the time, you probably have more reference to that than I've got here at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, lovely.
May I ask? I was expecting that question to come actually, but yes. But was a vote taken on it, and any reasons between yourselves as to why? Mr. Bloomfield, yes.
Yes, we obviously when we had our, I think originally it was a proper meeting, and we were all decided basically because of those sort of points I've put forward, the merits on it, and it sort of fits in with the local needs of what young families are heading towards and need at the moment.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry that you have these questions, but Councillor Long is correct. I was anticipating this question coming up. We have to determine how the vote was arrived at, or how your decisions were arrived at. But thank you very much. If there are no other questions, Councillor Holly, you have a question, do you?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question to you, sir, is this. One of the arguments the parish council put forward was that there is another application which had been given permission for 2 dwellings before. But when I've looked it up, can I just confirm for you that this application was for dwellings in between existing properties? I think it's Tradar and the Coast houses. Is that right? On that field there, piece of land there?
Yes, I think you're absolutely correct.
So that was inside the village, effectively. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, just the same as this one is.
Oh, sorry, right, okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Bloomfield. We are on live stream, so you're able to watch the remainder of this application if you wish. We now move on to our next speaker, who is Lauren Coles. Are you there, please, Lauren?
Yes, sorry.
Hello, good day to you. You have 3 minutes to give your input into this application. We will give you a 30-second warning before the end. If you can ensure you are close to the mouthpiece when replying to us or talking to us, it does help to make it clearer. So when you're ready, away you go. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have both lived in Altanun our entire lives. Both our families have for generations too, and are still well known within the village today. My grandparents owned the local pub for many years, and my grandmother farmed in the village. She has a clock in her memory in the village hall for all of her work she did in the community. Neil's father was born in the village, and his grandmother is still very much a local in the heart of the village today. So not only is it important that we stay local for our work commitments, it is vital that we stay close to our family too. We have been together for over 8 years now, but having to rent for the past 7 to allow us to stay local for work, it has been impossible for us to save for an open market property on our wage. Even more so now with the pandemic's effect on the housing market, there is no way we can compete with those relocating to Cornwall on their city salaries. We are registered with Help to Buy Southwest, and there are no affordable houses available in our area. So the only way we're going to be able to afford a home of our own to start a family is to build on the plot left to us by the family farm. In 2015, the Prime Minister promised 200,000 affordable homes for couples just like us, but the Secretary of State for Housing confirmed in February this year that none have yet been built. So we know there is a shortage of affordable homes, and being able to build here will give us the chance to be homeowners and start a family in the village we call home. I've been diagnosed with an alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, which is a rare faulty gene affecting my lungs and liver. So moving to a built-up area where the property may be more affordable isn't an option due to the impact it would have on my health. Our plot is directly opposite a functioning scrapyard within the settlement and is still within the 30-mile-an-hour speed restriction of Trewint. With us both being brought up in the village and our families well known, we have the full support of the parish council. We are happy to work with them to ensure our proposed dwelling would complement the settlement. We are happy to accept a local needs condition on any permission granted. With us both working locally and with our family living within the village, there really is no need for us to move elsewhere. We need this opportunity to build an affordable dwelling and to start our family
30 seconds remaining.
in the village we've both grown up in and share with our families today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you can hold for the moment, in case there are any questions. Are there any questions of the speaker, please, for clarification purposes? There are none coming up. Can I have that confirmed, please, Vice Chair?
No, I've now done it.
No, sorry, Chairman. Councillor Burden's just raised his hand.
Could I ask the applicant, is there any other pieces of land close to the Trewint village that may be more acceptable to the planning officer? Were any others looked at?
Yeah, back to you, Lauren.
Yeah, well, that's the land that was given to us. That's in the family farm. So that was all that was available to us affordably without having to purchase. It was given to us by my grandmother at no cost.
Thank you.
No other questions being shown. So thank you very much, Lauren, for phoning in. You are able to watch the application on the live stream if you wish to do so. Our next speaker is Councillor Parsons, a divisional member. You have 5 minutes, at which time I should be looking for you to wind down, Adrian. Away you go.
Chairman, committee members, thank you for the opportunity to speak and reinforce the comments which have been made by Alton Parish Council regarding this application, PA 19/60499 at Trewint, Alton. Can I also just make reference to the question that was asked to the parish council with regards to the vote that was taken? This application was discussed twice by the parish council, once in a physical meeting and once at virtual meeting, and both times it was supported unanimously by the parish council. This is as genuine an application that you will ever see. As you've already heard, it is for local needs, affordable dwelling for a local couple who both work and are active within this community. I feel we should be doing all we can to support our young people, to provide housing for them to live in the villages they were brought up in if they so wish. As can be seen, Help to Buy South West has confirmed the applicant has a local connection to the parish of Alton Nunn. They are in housing need and unable to purchase a family home within the parish. The houses in this area which come onto the market to buy are all too often out of reach for so many, and there are no affordable homes in the pipeline to be built or likely to become available. Prior to me becoming a councillor, there are 2 exception sites that were granted permission, but as we so often find in the rural villages with the small housing developments of 8 and 10, with 50% affordable in the mix, they just aren't seen as being attractive or viable for housing developers to come in and take on. As we all know, they would rather take up the 50, 100, 200 housing sites near the towns just because the figures stack up. The development would meet that local need and would add another dwelling locally to the affordable housing stock, creating a rural exception site. The applicants would be willing to accept the Section 106 agreement, ensuring it remains affordable into perpetuity. In the balance of considerations, this adds great weight in favour of the application. It also goes some way to prove this isn't about financial gain. It's about having a house they can call their home. With regards to the location, we have all heard how rounding off is interpreted even today by the inspectors, and things we are often asked to bear in mind for future decisions. Our sites visually, physically and functionally closely related to the settlement, and what harm would the proposal and where is the harm from? From the maps you can see the site is very closely related to the settlement of Trewint, with the scrapyard, which is adjoining Dar Bungalow, directly opposite, which is considered to be within the settlement of Trewint. The site also falls within the Trewint village signage and the 30-mile-per-hour speed limit. Trewint Farm next door to Treddar, I think, is possibly the site which Councillor Holly was referring to a moment ago, is being developed with, I think it's an additional 5 dwellings, the first of which are now being marketed for around £300,000. The site will be tucked away and will not be prominently visible, and I think it's also worth mentioning it is also only a few hundred yards away from the A30, as can also be seen on the map. In no way can I envisage what will be a modest single dwelling impacting anything like as heavily on this area as to what is already in the proximity. Trewint is a most sustainable location with a good road network with easy access onto the A30, which is also supported with a regular bus service running from Bodmin to Launceston and beyond. There is also a footway or a pavement which runs from Trewint to the neighbouring Elton Nunn just down the road, which is a school, post office, tea room, gallery, church hall, which is just another reason why we want to support our young families to keep the heart beating within our communities, supporting and keeping alive the amenities which our rural villages have to offer. So for all these reasons, I ask you to please support this most genuine application, and I thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Adrian. I see Councillor Holly has his hand up. This is for a question to Adrian, or would it be to the officer?
It's to Adrian, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, certainly. Yes.
Thank you. Adrian, I'm not trying to trap you on this, but as a planning committee, we have to consider planning law, and this is within the AUND. So can you explain to us and justify how this, first of all, enhances and conserves the AUNB? How does this development enhance and conserve it?
How do I feel? I feel like all other Policy 9 applications which we have put before us to discuss are there with a reason to support a local need for young families or for any other family that requires housing. And this should be done in a way that's sympathetic and enhances, as you pointed out, the area. This site is tucked in around the corner from the gateway of the field as you enter it. I'm not sure that it will be visible or prominent from any vantage point.
I think, Adrian, as I would anyone else, I think the question has been answered.
Can I just make a point, Chair, with regards to the settings
it was on the
around
AONB. The question was on the AONB. So I've got to restrict you to that, as anyone else would be.
I think, from what's been said, I think it sits comfortably within policy.
Fine. Okay. Sorry to interrupt you, but it has to be the same for everyone. And it was answering Councillor Holly's questions. So thank you very much. Okay, Derek, are there any questions then? If there's no other questions to Councillor Parsons, then we move on to questions for the officer. I see your hand is up still, Derek, so you have a question for the officer. Hello, Derek.
I'm sorry, I'm trying my very best to lower this hand and it won't do it.
You don't have a question, or?
No question, thank you.
Right, Councillor Fitter, John Fitter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I once again may have missed it, but have we got a number of people on the affordable housing list for the parish of Altrincham? Is it in the report? Because I can't see it, the actual number of people who are seeking homes within the parish.
That's for you, James.
I'll just try and bring up the section of my report. If you've missed it, then it's probably not there. I mean, this application is assessed on an individual need basis. So there may be something from the... I'm just scanning through the affordable housing team's response to the application.
Can I just interject there? I see Richard Hawkey has his hand up. Richard, are you able to answer this question?
Yes, I am. Yes, currently 14 households on the register.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Sorry, there are currently 14 households on the Home Choice Register.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question's been answered, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of the case officer, please? Councillor Eddy.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I've had a look on the Google Earth. I'm looking at the map now. I can see the scrapyard on the other side of the road, and the application site is within the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. Does that give us an indication of where the settlement boundary might be? Can I have a comment on that, Chairman?
Yes, across to you again, James.
Well, I mean, you're correct that there's a 30-mile-an-hour sign, and there's also a gated and concealed entrance to a scrapyard, but those two elements alone don't necessarily give an indication that you've entered into a village. I think the slides that I'd shown previously, and the distance 135 odd meters away from the nearest property on the same side of the road, and the winding lane that takes you out of the village, it's very clearly not a site that's well related to this small hamlet, despite the fact that you've got a 30-mile-an-hour sign and a scrapyard on the other side of the road.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, I see Councillor Holly. Your hand is back up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll try and get it right this time. I'm just a bit confused as to what this application is doing here, Mr. Chairman. Can James explain? Is this more or less exactly the same application that came in January and was refused in January?
Yes, it's a resubmission of that refusal.
There's no additional changes or arguments for it in all?
No, nothing.
Okay, thank you.
Fine. Martin, your hand is still up, unless you have another question. Right, Councillor Parsons, Adrian.
Sorry, Chairman, I kind
Questions
of
for clarification.
I raised my hand by mistake, but if I could say, with regards to the question being the same as the previous application, it was at a time when there were some changes within the parish council, and it was actually a mistake that it wasn't called to committee the first time round. So I would be deeply upset if that was held against this application.
It is a question you should be asking the officer, of course. I hate to pick these points up, but we have to be very strict with everyone on this. Would you like to answer that one just for the record, James?
I don't really know what I can say. I mean, it wasn't called to committee the first time round, and it was this time round.
Okay, yeah, fine. Are there any other questions of the case officer, please? For clarification purposes? No? Right, in that case, we're into open debate. Who would like to start the open debate? Councillor Fitter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be very brief. I have every sympathy with the applicant on this occasion, and I think no one on the committee has anything other than perfect sympathy. But I regret that, this is not the way that we can approach and solve this lady and gentleman's problem. However much it may be so, we cannot. It is not according to policy. It is certainly not fitting, in my mind, policy 9, and the Cornwall AONB have concerns. But also we have 14 households in the parish who are in the same predicament. And this one house will solve one family's predicament, but the other 13 families, of course, will not be able to bid in the process for this affordable house. So, it really, they're very fortunate to have been given this piece of land, and I think it's wonderful that their grandmother should have done this. But we cannot, as a committee, approve this application for those reasons and those reasons alone. So, Mr. Chairman, I will be supporting the officer's report as set out. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, John. Anyone else wishing to speak? I see what. Sorry, who's that? Oh, Jim, is it?
Yeah.
Okay, Jim.
I spent probably the full lifetime of the AONB committee, and when we wrote our management plan, we considered that people living in the AONB areas contributed to how the AONB looks today. And we always supported people, farmers included, to live and work within the AONB to continue their long-term aim to keep the AONB as it has looked for the last 3,000 years plus. The AONB was formed in 2002, and I was one of the first members on that committee. And we looked sympathetically on keeping people that worked and lived in the landscape. Modern houses have been built within the Helford River and a lot of the places in Cornwall, and they have been rather large development, but it's been to bring people into Cornwall with a lot of finance to help our situation. They've spent a lot of money in our areas. We haven't said they can't live in an AONB area. And here we got a young family that have been fully supported by the parish council and their divisional member. And they're the best people to make a decision on this application. And I think we ought to be supporting them. If those people now end up with a parcel of land, you can depend if they have a mind to put it up on a market and sell it. Someone else will be putting in for 8 to 10 houses on the same field, and it knocks it into a cocked hat. Here it's one house, 100% affordable, and we should be supporting them. And if we can't take the notice of the parish council and divisions of the parish, we shouldn't actually be making decisions on any of it. Personally, I would like to propose that we accept this application as it is. And
you're proposing acceptance, and Jim, John. Sorry, yeah, Jim.
Yes, I do, because I think it meets policy 3, keeping local people within our parishes. We're losing them too fast now.
Yeah.
Local people can't build. They can't live here. They can't afford the house. They've already been...
We'll come, Jim, if we can come back to that in a moment. I don't want to... I don't want to start restricting everyone to 2 minutes talking, but, you know, I think we've got your point on that one. Now, there are no other hands up to speak. Now, someone has to make a decision here, and we have... Yeah, we got Councillor Long and Councillor Taylor. So we'll go across Andrew, followed by Linda.
Yeah, it's really a question for Councillor Flashman. He says he wants to support it. Could you explain which part of policy 3 he thinks it conforms to? Because obviously we are going to need to hear that in whether it's compliant or not. Because obviously we need to take away unfortunately, we have to take away the emotive part of this and look at it under policy terms. So I just wanted to understand what part of policy 3 he thinks it refers to and how he's using it. So that'd be great, just so I can clarify my own mind.
Right, Jim, if you can clarify that as briefly as you can, please.
Well,
for the policy 3.
Well, policy 3 and policy 9, strangely enough, because here we are looking into affordable housing. This is 100% affordable build. They've already pointed out that it's within the parish boundary. I don't understand.
We'll have a look at that shortly with our planning officers and whether that's possible or not. Come across to Linda. Linda.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask the same question about the compliance in relation to policy 3. So I think I'm going to wait now to see what the planning officer says.
Right, fine. Well, at this point, we have 2 proposals and no seconders, but what I will do is go across to Davina to try and, or James, whichever, to try and bring something into this argument with regards to this policy 3, please. Would one of you like to come in?
I don't mind answering that one, Chair. I mean, the application is explained and set out in the report as being promoted on the basis of a policy 9 rural exception site. Policy 3, as we know, is more about sites within or rounding off villages. There's a section at the end of Policy 3 that talks about compliance with rural exception sites under Policy 9. So it's probably better to be considering this under Policy 9 rather than 3.
Fine. Okay, so I'm looking there. I have Councillor Fitter and Long's hands up. Are you either of you wishing to speak again, or just hands still up? That one's down. That one's down. Right. Okay. You've heard what was said so far. We'll come into more detail in a minute if necessary. But at this moment in time, there's nothing on the screen of anyone wishing to say anything, and we have two proposers. Right, Councillor Tamlin.
Thank you, Chair. I think the problem here is that everybody's got utter sympathy for the applicants, and nobody wants to refuse the application. But I don't think we can find policy reasons to approve it, so I'll second the refusal.
Very well said, Councillor Tamlin. Very well said, Sam. I think that is certainly my concerns about it. But I've got to be honest and say, if this was my daughter or granddaughter, I could still not argue against the policies at the moment. So, Linda, did you want to come back in, or is your hand still up?
No, thank you, Chair. I would like to second Councillor Flashman's recommendation to support.
Right, we'll come back to that shortly, because we do have the proposal on the table at the moment for refusal, as in line with recommendation. So if that falls, we'll come back to you then. Councillor Burton.
Yes, I've got every sympathy with the applicant, and this is the problem we're facing as people who sit on planning, because we've got rules and regulations, and then we've got a human need, and the conflict is not very easy to overcome. But can I remind members, Mr. Chairman, that just along the road is the house that caused all the problem with cream teeth and concrete when the Liberal Democrat MP Paul Tyler, now Lord Tyler, and Brenda Parsons made us the scapegoats of North Cornwall to the nation, and it's the house along this road that was the problem. And you know, I'll never forget that, because it was all wrong and it was evil, and but that is how it is, and I just think that members need to bear that in mind. Thank you.
Fine. Okay, Linda, is your hand is still up from previous, I take it, is it?
Sorry, Chair, it's a legacy hand.
A legacy hand. Right, we have Jane Pascoe, Councillor Pascoe, followed by Andrew Long.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I am sorry, but Councillor Burden, I think we should be considering what's in front of us and not making comparisons with other applications. I think this is totally different from that. This is a local affordable need. I'm sorry. I think point of order, that should be stopped. Thank you.
I think you're right. You're thinking, but once it's said, it's been said, and that was it, done. And we do occasionally get these history lessons coming out from various councillors, but I appreciate what you say, but it's done. One can't reverse the tape or anything and scrub it, and it wasn't strong enough really to bring him to heel there. It was said and ended. But Councillor Long.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would echo what Councillor Pascoe just said. I think we need to deal with the application that's strictly before us,
is right,
and not look at other applications that have gone in the past. This is one of those really frustrating ones where you actually, in the end, question the how policy is created in Westminster that we have to adhere to living here in Cornwall. Because in the cold light of day, if policy was made locally, there would be a policy that would deal with local people requiring accommodation in affordable housing areas for affordable housing within Cornwall. The issue we've got here is trying to find a policy that is created by in a city that refers to a rural area, and I'm really struggling reading through Policy 9 again, and I keep reading Policy 9 to see where I can find the support that is required for this application, and I'm really struggling, because with the best will in the world, and I understand where the councillors are coming from, but I cannot see that it is linked to the built form. It isn't. We just refused an application which was a lot closer than this, and I cannot understand how we can do this. So whilst I have incredible sympathy with them, and it irks me to have to say, but we have to do this on policy. It is what we've joined the committees to do. We have to use policy for it, and I'm really struggling to find a policy reason to support this application. I can understand now that I can see where we've gone, where James has helped us to go from policy 3 to policy 9. There is one line in policy 3 which says it needs to be compliant with policy 9. So that's where policy 3 comes in. So I think we need to only look at policy 9 compliance with this. And I just really struggle to find that it's policy 9 compliant. And it's very sad to say that, because we're losing families left, right and centre in these villages, but we've got to, policies have been set and we need to follow them, and I'm just struggling to find a policy reason.
Thank you, Andrew. Richard, I'll come to you next, but just for the moment, Davina, can you confirm, after I've spoken to Councillor Pugh, the situation, sort of nail it on the head as to what is what exactly on this policy 9, possibly, or if there's any defensible way that this can be looked at, but I'll cross now to Councillor Pugh. Richard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Have you got a seconder for Councillor Tamlin?
No, because it was proposed by Councillor Fitter some while ago, and Councillor Tamlin seconded it.
I didn't think Councillor Fitter proposed it. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, let me just, John, can you confirm you proposed it?
I said that I would support and propose as set out, sir. Well, that's what I intended to say when I spoke for
So in that case, you did propose it, really, then?
Thank you.
Oh, that's okay then. That's fine. I wanted just to second it to move it on. That's all.
Yes, yeah. I'm looking to move this on, Richard. You're right. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor, he's gone. Councillor Summons, you happy? You're not? Yes, he's back on. John, do speak to me rather than wave to me.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I think this is the same as what in central planning, Chairman, as you know, the one which I put through. I think morally we should support it, but policy we just can't, and that's the way I feel.
Right. To move this on, I see no other hands are up. We do have a proposal on the table to refuse in line with recommendation. So this was proposed by Councillor Fitter, seconded by Councillor Tamlin. Can I pass it over to Rowena, please?
Yes, when I call your name, please.
Oh, sorry, I don't know, Davina, did you want to clarify anything beforehand?
Chairman, I'm not sure there's an awful lot to clarify. I mean, obviously this case presents a really challenging case for members in terms of the personal circumstances. I would just highlight what many of the members have said, that we must determine applications in accordance with policy. Personal circumstances, as difficult and as tough as it is, they rarely outweigh policy objections. Here we've clearly got policy 9 of the Cornwall local plan, and we've got issues relating to whether the development is well related to the physical form of the settlement, and we've also got an AONB designation. So I would draw members' attention to paragraph 172 of the NPPF, which is clear that great weight should be given to conserving and enhancing landscape and scenic beauty. So it really is that really strong level of protection that members must consider in reaching their decision on the application. Thank you.
Fine, thank you. In that case, the proposal is by Councillor Fitter, seconded by Councillor Tamlin, for refusal in line with recommendation. I'll pass it to you, Rowena.
Chairman, Councillor Taylor has just raised her hand. I don't know if you want to take that before I do.
Fine. Okay, Linda.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, I just want to go back to clarifying something that I remember reading in Policy 9, which was that the policy must presume in favour of proposals which provide affordable housing.
I'll pass you back to Davina to answer that one. Davina, would you like to answer that one?
I don't believe that's necessarily a quote in policy 9, Councillor Taylor. I wonder if maybe you're referring to the general presumption in favour of development, which sort of underpins the local plan, underpins MPPF. But obviously, in considering that general presumption in favour, we must consider the material impacts of development, and we must consider the other key policies which relate. So policy 9 really is your main consideration in terms of the acceptability of the site.
Fine. Okay, Linda.
Could I just ask the planning officer again? And I'm thank you for your indulgence. It's just
it is indulgence really, because we have really moved on to a vote to be taken. But
okay,
if you're very brief on it, I will allow you.
I just want to establish where it says that the specific purpose of the scheme is to deliver affordable housing to meet a local need. You know, these words are absolutely ringing with me on this application.
Right, across to James or Davina, one of you would like to answer that?
I don't mind answering. I mean, you're right, Councillor. The rural exception policy 9 is split into, it's the first paragraph, and it's split into 2 sections. So the first section of that policy talks about the primary purpose of housing is there to provide affordable housing to meet local needs, and that's supported where it's clearly affordable housing led. But then there's the second, and would be well related to the physical form of the settlement, appropriate in scale, character and appearance. So it's 2 parts to the wording of that paragraph within policy 9. You have to meet both elements.
Okay. Now, I have 3 hands up. I do not want to reopen this debate unless you have something of real value or something you bringing forward that we have not discussed. I don't mind giving you a quick word on this, but I do not want to open up this can again, because a proposal has been made, the vote will be taken, and if it's turned down, we will be looking at the alternatives. Martin, do you have anything new you wish to add?
Really, Chairman, thank you for your indulgence. Under the AONB there, if it can demonstrate that it conserves and enhances the landscape character with a suitable landscape condition around this property, we could have greater biodiversity than we currently have with a bare grass field. Can I give that any weighting?
Right, we'll come back to the planning officer in a moment on that. Jane, did you want to add anything new to this?
Yes, before you go back to the planning officer, that would be helpful. Just very briefly, the last paragraph of policy 9 actually also states the council secure future accommodation affordable homes to those with a housing need and local connection to the settlement or parish in line with the council's adopted local connection policy. Now, they may not, they are prepared to sign a 106 agreement to make sure it's an affordable home in perpetuity, and they have that very strong local connection to the parish. So perhaps the planning officer could just take a peep at that as well. Thank you.
Yes, and I'll come to John. Do you have anything as well? Because that's the last 3 I wish to take here. Did you want to add, John?
It's just this, Mr. Chairman. I think to put this to bed, when they're referring to policy 3, the last bullet point, the separate bullet point on policy 3, which is above the rural exception sites under policy 9, it says within the AONB or its setting, development will be supported where it's in accordance with other policies of this plan and can demonstrate that it conserves and enhances the landscape character and natural beauty of the ANOB. And so, in actual fact, that policy 3 is no relevance at all, and under policy 9 with the AONB paragraph 4, it means to say policy 9 cannot really fit the bill for this application. Thanks.
Fine. If all 3 of you can take your hands down then, please, and we'll move back to Davina or James for the final word on this so that we can go to a vote and see what comes out of it. Hands down. Let's see. Yeah.
Thanks, Chair. Just in response to Councillor Eddy's point about policy 23, I mean, it's our opinion really that the introduction of a new dwelling into a green field site isn't necessarily something that's going to create a biodiversity improvement or improve the character and appearance of unspoilt designated landscape, where we feel that great weight needs to be given to its conservation. So I'm not sure that there's particular strength in that argument. Just on the rural exceptions policy final paragraph, I mean, that's just really clarifying where we might be supportive of an affordable application. And we've already stated in the officer report that we're not in disagreement. We support the element of affordability. It's the key issue is where the site is located. So that's the balance of consideration that we've had to come to in this particular application. We are sympathetic, and we've identified that there is a local need, but the harm caused by siting a dwelling unrelated to a settlement in an AONB is greater.
Fine, thank you. Final word, if you have any, Davina, on this before we go to the vote with Rowena.
I don't think I've got anything further to add, actually, Chairman. I think James's response covered it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rowena, over to you. Proposed by Councillor Fitter, seconded by Councillor Tamlin.
Thank you. When I call your name, please state whether you are for, against or abstain. Councillor Burden.
Abstain.
Councillor Lennox Boyd.
For refusal.
Councillor Eddy.
Sadly, for refusal.
Councillor Flashman.
Against refusal.
Councillor Fitter.
For refusal.
Councillor Holly.
For refusal.
Councillor Jordan.
Against.
Councillor Long.
For refusal.
Councillor Simmons.
For refusal.
Councillor Taylor.
Against.
Councillor Pascoe.
Against refusal.
Councillor Pugh.
For refusal.
Councillor Tamlin.
For refusal.
And Councillor Batters.
For refusal.
Chairman, the application has been refused by 9 votes to 4 with 1 abstention.
Thank you very much. And I think we ought to just mention there that there are a large number of us voting today who have great sympathy with the situation, but we are here for a purpose, and that is a planning purpose.
Okay. Have my name recorded, please, Chairman?
Yeah, certainly, Jim. Okay, we move on now to, oh no, beg your pardon, we'll take a 10-minute break if you like. It's now, well, if we come back at perhaps 12:05, 12:05. Okay, if you can please all make sure your microphones are muted and cameras off, please. See you shortly. Thank you. Right, it's 12:05 by my clock here on the laptop. Did you want to just check everyone's here, or?
Yes,
Rowena?
Chairman, I'll do a roll vote, just a roll call, just to check that the members are back from the break. So
Thank
when
you.
I call your name, please just indicate you're back from the break. Councillor Burden.
Yeah, do you want me?
Just checking that you're back from the break.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Lennox Boyd.
I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Eddy.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Flashman.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Fitter.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Holly. Councillor Holly. I'll come back to him. Councillor Jordan.
I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Long. Councillor Long. I'll come back to him. Councillor Simmons.
Yes, here.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pascoe.
Present and correct.
Thank you. Councillor Pugh.
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Tamlin.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Parsons.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Batters.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Long, can you confirm you're back from the break, please? Councillor Long. Okay, Councillor Holly, can you confirm you're back from the break, please? We're just waiting for 2 members, Chairman.
Right.
I'm back.
Right, Councillor Long, thank you. Councillor Holly, can you confirm you're back from the break, please?
Yeah, I'm back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely. So we're all back now, obviously.
Yes, all committee members are back.
Okay. Right, so our next item on the agenda is PA 20 07475, item 3 on the agenda. Land opposite Trudavas Point, Penpont, St Breward, Bodmin. Across to James Hills is presenting this one. Across to you, James.
Thank you, Chair. Attempt to share the screen. Is that good?
Yes, visible. Lovely.
Okay. So here we have an outline application for a proposed single open market dwelling with all matters reserved for later consideration on the edge of a hamlet near St Breward. So the key issues for consideration in this case relate to the location of the proposed residential development in terms primarily of policy 3, but policies 3, 7 and 21 of the local plan, and the impact that the dwelling might have on the area of great landscape value. So here's a location plan of the hamlet, showing the proposal site on the southeast corner. So my next slide shows it in a bit more detail. This is the application site here, so it's part of a wider agricultural field. This is your aerial plan from Google Earth, showing the site in context, and an existing site plan showing the ownership in blue and the red line application site in red, and an indicative plan of what a dwelling might look like. So here we've got some photographs of the site, some properties on the other side of the road, and a small ditch and hedgerow to join the application site. This is a existing field gate entrance on the left-hand photograph, and an old one further down the hill, and the site is at that point of the sort of the field gate entrance on the left. A couple of pictures patched together, but showing what happens to the site as you look out towards the wider countryside. And here's back looking to towards the village on the other, or hamlet on the other side, That building's a converted studio, I believe. So these are a couple of panoramic photographs showing the most of the site and its setting within the landscape. And a view to the southwest, standing on the application site, approximately where the indicative dwelling might go. In terms of officers' balance of considerations, it was considered that there were limited benefits of the proposal, namely contribution to local housing stock and a small economic benefit through the construction and occupation of the dwelling, but this is not outweighed by the harm that would be caused to the natural environment through the extension of built form out of the village and into the open countryside. The scheme isn't considered to represent a rounding off of the hamlet. It represents unsustainable development and is recommended for refusal in accordance with the officer recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. Our first speaker on this application is Councillor Dennis Lusby of St Burr Parish Council. Good morning, Dennis. You're with us, I hope?
Chairman, it's Emma, Code Meeting Producer. I've just spoken to Mr. Lusby and he's just about to dial in.
Fine, thank you. Hello, Dennis. Are you with us?
Oh, hello. Yes, I am.
Sorry,
hello?
Is that?
Chairman, that's Jane Hanlon. She's your next speaker.
Oh, Jane. Yeah, sorry, Jane. I was looking for Councillor Lusby first.
Oh, okay.
I'll be with you shortly, Jane, if Dennis is available.
Chair, did you want to move on to Jane Hamlin first?
Well, I think we're going to have to, obviously. Right, yeah. So in that case, Jane, good morning to you. Thank you for attending. You have 3 minutes to set out your details on the application. We'll give you a 30-second warning before the end of the 3 minutes. And if you can hold at the end of it, there may be some questions for clarification from the committee members. Okay, so when you're ready, away you go. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. The proposed scheme at Penpont is for a local couple who wish to create a suitable retirement home in their hamlet. There have been no objections to this scheme, and in fact, there have been many letters of support from their neighbours who've been consulted individually regarding the proposal. We have the support of our client's local councillor and the parish council, whilst divided, also ultimately voted in favour of the application. Further to this, another family from the local area is interested in our client's existing dwelling, which demonstrates that approving the scheme could help support the long-term viability of the settlement. In terms of the proposal itself, the dwelling is to be single-storey and set back from the road in a similar manner to the existing properties opposite. It will use appropriate materials for the area and be considerate of its neighbours. If you were to draw a virtual boundary around the existing development in Penpont, the proposed dwelling, whilst on the opposite side of the road, would fit neatly within this line, rounding off the hamlet. It will be well screened by the existing hedgerow and will therefore have very minimal visual impact. As previously stated, the immediate neighbours have been consulted and have no objections. It is also proposed to use one of the two existing accesses to the site, which will limit any work to the hedgerow and the boundary along the road. There are the remains of a small existing structure in the corner of the field, which also contains the site. This is a former stable building, and the cobbled floor and granite columns survive along with some horseshoes. This reflects the former use of the field as equestrian, and whilst the structure itself lies outside the proposed new site boundary, it is clear that the site would also have shared this same former use. This evidence has currently been noted by Cornwall Council, but disregarded as not being recent enough use. But we consider that this is in fact relevant and could constitute previously developed land. The site is currently home to rescue sheep, our client's pets, who range across this land and this area and the rest of their land. The proposed new site boundary for the bungalow would include a substantial length of new Cornish hedge planted with native species to support local wildlife and ecology. Our clients are also willing to help increase the natural habitat around Penpont through additional planting or creation of a woodland area on the land they own adjacent to the site. So it would be easy to demonstrate at reserved matters stage that this scheme will have a net gain in terms of ecology. In addition to this, we are happy to accept any conditions the council sees fit to ensure the surrounding land is not subsequently developed as a result of this application. And in conclusion, we feel that our clients are an asset to Penpont.
30 seconds remaining.
as is reflected in the local support shown to them and their modest scheme, and the benefits greatly outweigh any perceived ambiguity in terms of planning policy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Jane. Are there any questions of the speaker, please, for clarification purposes? Councillor Holly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me? I've got funny signs. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, yes, can hear you.
A couple of quick questions. You said, and I missed which one it was, which neighbours are supportive of the application? Is it the neighbours in Penpont, or the neighbours across the road in the Barn and Tredevis and Ashmere Park?
They've spoken to all of the neighbours around the site.
Okay.
They've basically gone around the whole hamlet.
Okay, thank you for that. And I missed the justification for you calling it previous developed land. I'm sorry about this, Mr. Chairman. Could you just clarify that for me?
Yes, it's because there is an existing stable building, or the remains of the stable building within the field of which the site is part of, and we know historically we know that it was used for equestrian purposes.
I'm looking on Google Earth. I just can't see that. Whereabouts is that?
It's tucked away in the hedge. So there are some photographs that have been.
Can I just interrupt you? Can I just interrupt you both there a second? James, are you able to bring up the map to show so we can discuss it for everyone to see?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, go, away you go, Derek and Jane.
Yeah, where is it, James?
So the site entrance on the right. It's just to the right of that. It's kind of tucked in. You can't see it very well, but we've submitted some photographs, which presumably you've seen with the cobbled floor and the granite columns.
Oh, that one. Okay.
So it's to the right of the red line boundary, but it's within the blue line.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Derek.
Thank you.
Fine. Are there any other questions for clarification of the speaker, please? None shown, Chair, I believe. Vice Chair? Vice Chair, confirm.
Sorry, Chairman, my computer's lagging today. No, that's it.
Fine. Thank you very much, Jane. If you wish to hold on, you can hear this, hear and see this application on the live stream. But thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.
Dennis, are you with us? Thank you. Dennis, are you with us now?
Hello.
Hi, is that
Hello?
Dennis? Hello, is
Hello?
that Dennis?
Hello.
Hello, is that Dennis?
Yes.
Hi.
Right.
Welcome to the meeting, Dennis.
Thank you.
You have 3 minutes to state your details. We'll give you a 30-second warning before the end. Because you're on a phone, can you ensure the mouthpiece is pretty close to the mouth itself, just to ensure we hear you clearly. So when you're ready, your 3 minutes start now. Thank you.
Okay. The Parish Council voted 4-3 in support of the application. Penpont has been a settlement for most of the last century. Unlike Delank, which is a half a mile away, Delank was originally 2 farmhouses. At Delank Farm, planning permission was given for a retirement bungalow, and later the farm buildings were converted into dwellings. Cornwall Council then gave planning permission for a large house in the garden of the bungalow. The barn at the other farmhouse was converted into a dwelling, and recently part of the field was used to build a new house in the countryside. This house has just been completed. Unlike Delank, which is a classic case of planning creep or ribbon development, this application rounds off an existing settlement. It is not ribbon development. The applicant, the local man, has replaced a tin house with a well-designed bungalow, and the application offers a similar dwelling. When the existing workshop pottery to the west of the site finishes or ceases to be a pottery, there is likely to be an application to convert this to a dwelling. And I believe that if this application is refused, a subsequent appeal will likely succeed. And recently in the parish of St. Bird, we have 20 affordable houses built in the last 3 years. That's it.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the speaker for clarification purposes, please? Derek, your hand is still up. Is that from the last question?
I've got a question, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
All right, go ahead then.
Can you tell me, and I don't know if you can answer this, but the people who wish to build this bungalow and live in it, are they living in the existing hamlet at the moment?
Yes.
Okay, so they're selling their house and wish to build this one. Okay, got it. Thank you very much, sir.
No other questions. If you could drop your hand, please, Derek. No other questions of yourself, Dennis. Thank you very much for attending, Dennis.
Okay.
You're able to watch this on the live stream as the application develops. Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is the divisional member, Councillor Fairman, Dominic. As you know, you have 5 minutes, at which time I will be looking for you to wind down.
There'll be no need for that, Chair, and thank you very much. Good afternoon to you, sir. So I have called this application to committee at the request of the Parish Council, and you will also note that the application has strong support of 6 of the 9 properties that make up the settlement of Penpont, with no objections. I'm basing my arguments on policy only and believe that your support today could avoid a potential ruling against the council appeal. In the report, the planning officer quite clearly and fairly states that the application site lies 2 kilometres from St Breward and that Penpont is considered to represent a settlement for the purposes of Policy 3 of the Cornwall Local Plan. Within the Cornwall Local Plan, the policies on infill and rounding off are quite specific around gaps in an otherwise continuous built frontage or being contained within a long-standing boundary features. And if this were our only policy guidance, then the conclusions might be considered fairly straightforward. However, we also have the benefit of our Chief Planning Officer's advice notes on infill and rounding off, which was issued to create greater consistency when making planning decisions. It states that the local plan supports Cornwall's dispersed settlement pattern and supports unplanned organic growth in and adjacent to Cornwall's villages and hamlets. It also states that decision makers are required to consider the proximity, accessibility and relationship of a smaller village or hamlet to other settlements, that it is unrealistic for public transport, walking or cycling to meet all of residents' transport needs alone. Consideration should be given to the availability of superfast broadband for home working or the ability to make short journeys on foot or bicycle. The hamlet of Penpont is blessed with access to superfast broadband and is also just 500 metres from the Camel Trail. Finally, and more importantly, it states that the development of land which does not entirely fit the definition of infilling, part of a continual frontage, or rounding off, but would be within the form and shape of that settlement will be acceptable where there is no significant harm arising to social, environmental or economic considerations. I do believe that this application presents a windfall development opportunity that does not present significant harm. Further to this clarification on policy, I would refer you to the training we have all received around the potential consideration of planning inspectors. Their own training manual instructs them to weigh up the protection of the countryside against the vitality of named settlements. There is only very limited visibility of this site from any public viewpoint. It asks whether or not the site is visually, physically and functionally more closely related to the settlement or to the surrounding countryside. On both of these points, I feel this application has a very strong case. I hope I've clearly demonstrated the very limited harm of this application, the local support and the policy case for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dominic. We come now to questions of the officer for clarification purposes. Does anyone wish to start, please? Another reluctance for any questions? I'll ask once more. If not, then we will. Right, Councillor Fitter, followed by Councillor Eddy. Over to you, John.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. Yeah, my question is, how strong is the SAVE policy ENV01, protecting the countryside and landscape character? It's a SAVE policy from the North Cornwall district. I've just been trying to find it, but I couldn't find it quickly enough. How strong is that SAVE policy?
It's part of the suite of policies that would apply to a consideration of an acceptability of an application. So, I mean, there's policy 23 of the Cornwall local plan sets out a similar position in relation to landscape impacts, but it's as a saved policy, it would remain relevant.
Yeah, the reason why I ask is it's worded in such a way that development is permitted. It doesn't sort of say that no development shall be permitted that may harm the landscape of the countryside, does it?
I don't have the policy in front of me. Whilst we're talking, I can try and get hold of it and comment.
The reason why I ask is because one of the Restore More Save policies had that word, and it's got us into a lot of bother lately. And so I just wondered what the wording of that policy actually said. But Mr. Chairman, I'll pass on it now, sir. I should have really raised it earlier, and I do apologise. But I hadn't agenda didn't arrive until actually Saturday. Thank you very much indeed, sir. Thank you.
Okay, John. Thank you. Martin, across to you.
Thank you, Chairman. James, I was curious. I appreciate this is an all matters reserved application, but can we say anything about the boundary treatment at this point? You know, I'm concerned that we open up a way to develop perhaps the rest of the field by granting this application. So, any pointers on any of that, James?
And it is possible that, you know, like with the other applications, you could attach a landscaping condition. I think the concern really is that this is rather an elevated field, and that you know, significant screening would need to be put in place to prevent the impacts of a dwelling on this particular site.
Okay, Martin.
And the other point that you could then develop the rest of the field.
Yeah, sorry about that. I mean, this is another factor that has been part of the officer assessment when looking at whether a site rounds off a settlement. You've got a position here where it's a large field which doesn't currently have a defined edge around the application site that might prevent further housing from coming forward. So, you know, the argument to suggest that you know, a number of additional dwellings might be suitable in the same terms could be made by another applicant.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, James.
Okay, thank you. John and Martin's hands are still up. I take it yours has just not gone down, John, unless you had another question. Right.
I do apologise, Mr. Chairman. I've dropped.
That's okay. That's okay. No problem. No other hands up. Councillor Parsons, yes.
Thank you, Chair. Loosely knowing the area, I was just wondering, I found the photo slightly misleading myself. Does the case officer feel actually there is very limited view from the public highway and other areas surrounding the application site, or does he feel that perhaps it is a prominent position?
I've walked around the site and from all angles from the road and from within it. My opinion is that it's a particularly prominent site.
Okay, Adrian.
Would it be possible to ask the divisional member the same question, please?
If you wish to at this moment, yes. Dominic, are you there?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, thanks for that. So, yeah, as you drive into the hamlet from the north or the south or the little road from the west, actually, as you approach the site, whichever direction you approach it from, there is already built form behind the application, you know, visibly. So as you approach from the north, you see the studio. The bungalow would be just in front of that. As you approach from the south, the bungalow would be just in front of the houses on the other side of the road. And as you approach from that other little road, it would be between the gaps between houses. So, you know, the visibility from the public point of view, who are driving up and down the road, because there are no local footpaths, I would contend it fits neatly within the built form already there. Thank you.
Okay. Let's answer your question, Adrian.
Thank you, Chairman. That would concur with my own thoughts.
Thank you. Right, no other hands up to speak. So in that case, we will go into open debate. So who wants to start the open debate? Your hand is still up, Adrian, unless you wanted to start that.
No, my hand is now lowered.
Who would like to start the open debate then? This is certainly a reluctant day today, isn't it? For Councillor Jordan.
Thank you, Chairman. I thought I'd better say something at least to let people know I'm here.
Yes, certainly.
I got a difficulty with this one because, like the previous one, I voted against refusal because I felt it was. But this one is even, which is better really. It's not so far away from the village, so I could probably support this application. It's keeping within the village. In my mind, it is rounding off and it's infill, no matter whether you look at it. So I find it difficult to turn this down. Thank you.
Fine, but you're not proposing at the moment?
Not yet.
Nothing like that. Keeping your powder dry, right? Okay. Councillor Parsons, followed by Councillor Fitter.
Thanks, Chair. I will come in and have a say. Yep. Slightly concurring with Councillor Jordan's comments, I do feel that, as is so often we're told, a rounding off site or an infill site should have properties on both sides of the development, which we do have in this situation. I feel that it's actually not that prominent within the landscape. It has community support, it has parish council support and divisional member support. So I'd be happy to move this one against the officer's recommendation if so allowed. Thank you.
Right, thank you. We have Councillor Fitter next, wasn't it?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is it possible, Mr. Chairman, for you to ask the officer to show the picture of the site through the gate again, the landscape view that he has taken?
Certainly.
Because
could you do so, please, James?
Yeah, and that is through you again, Mr. Chairman, to the officer. That is a public view through the gate from the road. So it's a landscape view that members of the public would. No one is entitled to a view except members of the public if it's a view worthy of being protected, and that is the view that they would see. Is that correct, sir?
Through you, Chair. The top photograph is taken at the gate, so there's a slight gap before the main road starts, which is the hedge bank. So that's me stood at the gate with the top and bottom photograph. So it's almost at the point of public vantage point.
Thank you.
Okay, John.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, and I've got I certainly have concern about supporting this application, and as it's set out, I wouldn't. One standalone house is in the open countryside. It's certainly not, in my humble opinion, it's not rounding off or infill. And I do have concern that we have this SAVE policy, ENV01, and they are saved for a purpose because they are strong policies. And we have to be very careful that we have very good reasons why we override these SAVE policies. I speak from bitter experience in my own division about how we've been caught up in the very SAVE policy. Ours is a different one. It's a restore policy, and so I, for all the reasons that the officer has put in, it's a house in the open countryside. It's certainly, it's not policy 7. They accept that's not policy 7, and I don't think it can be in any way policy 3. So I will not be supporting the permission, and I will be I'll be voting against overriding the officer's decision. Thank you, sir.
Are you making a proposal at this time, John, or not?
Well, I think a proposal's been made, sir, so I will.
Well, yeah, I didn't know if you're. if you're in favour of it, we've got a proposal.
Yes, I'm in favour of the report as set out, but the officer, I believe a proposal has been already made and seconded. But if that should fail, I will certainly be proposing.
No, we've only had a proposer for.
I'll second it, Chairman. Jim here.
We've only had the proposer for against recommendation. Yours is for recommendation, so we'll leave it there at the moment. But Jim, I could hear something in the background. I take it that's you.
That's me. That's me. Yeah. I consider it's infill. Owing to the other applications that have been passed along the same road, it does come within the confines of a notifiable hamlet, and I consider that it is not a great harm to the landscape, owing to the other dwellings that are there. So I certainly would second the application against officer's recommendation.
Fine. Okay, so we have a seconder there. Is there anyone else wishes to say anything? If not, we will go to the vote. But we can't go to the vote, of course, until, Adrian, you've set out your reasons for going against recommendation.
Firstly, Chairman, could I come in with another comment? Could we just go back to the pictures which Councillor Fitter asked for and Mr. Hills showed on the screen in front of us with regards to the loss of view from the highway?
Yeah, James will do that for you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, James. I don't actually think that is the site that's within view from the gateway. It's to the right of that picture, isn't it? Could you just clarify where the site is in conjunction with the picture, please? Because I don't think there will be a loss of view from the gateway or highway.
Well, it was really in response to the question before that was the site visible from the public realm, and this is the gate, the post, the gate post here. Yeah, so the application site. I'll just get it up in a second and show you the red line of the application.
Yeah, I'm not blaming you. I just think the conversation
Sweetness.
then went on further. Yeah. So obviously I'm butting in now, but from the existing access, we will be looking directly south, whereas the proposal will be tucked around to the right, beside or in between the existing houses, which we can and cannot see. So from my take, I thought the photo was slightly misleading with regards to a loss of view from the highway. Yeah, there you go.
Right. Okay. So that's answered your question on that one, Adrian, is it?
Yeah, I just want it clarified that actually we aren't losing the view from the highway, because obviously the site's tucked around to the side, which will be behind a Cornish hedge.
Fine. Okay. We have one other speaker left, by the looks of it. That's Andrew, Councillor Long.
Yeah, it was really just a clarification from Councillor Parsons, really, when he said the application will be tucked around in between existing buildings. I'm looking at the Google Maps now. Is there another building in that field that is not showing up on Google Earth? Because I can't see anything. I can see one further round to your
Can I
right.
interrupt again, Andrew? I'll get James to put it up for you if you like.
Please, could you? Yeah, because
Yes.
I'm just
James, could you
confused
put
as
up
to what
the Google Earth one, please?
It could have been he meant next to it and the ones across the road, but I just want to
for the benefit
clarify
of everyone
unless I'm
to
missing a house.
Yeah, every benefit for everyone to see. There we are.
Yeah. So was there another house built there that Councillor Parsons that you were talking about, or was it that as we see it there? Just for clarification.
As we see it there.
Thank you, mate. That's great. Thank you.
Fine. Okay. There are no other questions for clarification of the officer. And obviously we're into open debate, so there's no other hands up there. So in that case, we go forward with the proposal by Councillor Parsons and seconded by Councillor Flashman. And if you would like to enlighten us as to your reasons to go against refusal or recommendation, please, Adrian.
Yeah, I would like to go presumption in favour of sustainable development which conforms with spatial strategy, supporting role and functions of houses in places of support, and making best use of land. And I consider this to be a infill plot, as we have developments on two sides.
Right. Davina or James, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, if I may, please, Chairman. I would just like to ask members to sort of carefully consider really the definitions we have of infill and rounding off that are set out within the Chief Planning Officer notes, and also within paragraph 168 of your local plan. They are quite clearly defined. In terms of infill, this is the filling of a small gap in an otherwise continuously built up frontage that does not physically extend the settlement into the open countryside. So in making a decision on whether the proposal is infill, members have to consider that definition and whether this is a small gap in an otherwise continuously built up frontage. In officer's opinion, it isn't. It's a portion of a much larger field. There isn't housing development on the western side. The site abuts an the application site boundary abuts an allotment area there. In terms of the rounding off definition, this applies to development on land that's substantially enclosed but outside the urban form of a settlement. Clearly this site is outside of the urban form, but I would argue that it's not substantially enclosed. There are no hedgerow boundaries into the remainder of the field that would prevent further growth, and the site would have more affinity with the countryside than it does the actual settlement. So I would ask members to carefully consider those definitions and whether this proposal accords with those definitions. And in addition to that, obviously the site's within an area of great landscape value, so it is a protected landscape, so there must be consideration to the impact of encroaching built form of the settlement into that landscape. So as Councillor Fitter pointed out, policy ENV1 of the North Cornwall local plan is relevant. So I think that's all I'd like to add. Thank you, Chairman.
Fine. So we have the proposal from Councillor Parsons, seconded by Councillor Flashman, to go against recommendation, and you've heard the reasons for this. So can I now pass it across, in that case, to Rowena, to take the roll call, please, Rowena?
Chairman, we need to confirm conditions.
Oh, sorry, I thought you outlined that in there. Sorry. Yes. So would you like to give your reasons, your conditions on this, Adrian?
We need the proposer to clarify I think we've clarified the reasons if the planning officer is happy with that, but we need to do the conditions.
Yeah, it's for the planning officer, Chair.
Right. So, James or Davina?
Certainly. So in terms of conditions, you'd be looking at standard conditions for reserve matters schemes. So that's to secure details of the appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. Also your time limits condition for reserve matters schemes. And it may be prudent to add a condition in terms of landscaping implementation as well. But unless members have other suggestions for conditions, then that's all we've come up with thus far.
Fine. Okay. In that case, back to you then, Rowena. We've had the proposer and seconder. You've just heard the conditions. So over to you for the roll call.
Okay, when I call your name, please state whether you are for, against or abstaining. Councillor Burden.
I'm against this application, so therefore I'm against the recommendation now made. Thank you.
So you're against approval? Sorry, can you confirm that?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Councillor Lennox Boyd.
I'm against.
Councillor Eddy.
I'm against.
Councillor Flashman.
For.
Councillor Fitter.
Against approval.
Councillor Holly.
Against approval.
Councillor Jordan.
For.
Councillor Long.
Against.
Councillor Simmons.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
For.
Councillor Pascoe.
For.
Councillor Pugh.
Against.
Councillor Tamlin.
Against.
Councillor Parsons.
For.
Councillor Batters.
Against.
The motion for approval has been lost by 6 votes to 9.
Fine. So we had a proposal from John Fitter to a proposal to go in line with recommendation. So we're looking now for a seconder to that proposal. Anyone wish to second John's proposal to go in line with recommendation? Andrew, your hand is up.
Happy to second.
Fine. In that case, we have the proposal and seconder to go in line with the officer's recommendation. So it's back with you again, Rowena, for a roll call.
Okay, Councillor Burden.
Support the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Lennox Boyd.
For.
Councillor Eddy.
Support.
Councillor Flashman.
Against.
Councillor Fitter.
Support.
Councillor Holly.
Support.
Councillor Jordan.
Against.
Councillor Long.
For.
Councillor Simmons.
Against.
Councillor Taylor.
Against.
Councillor Pascoe.
Against.
Councillor Pugh. Councillor Pugh.
Sorry about that. 4.
Councillor Tamlin.
4.
Councillor Parsons.
Against.
Councillor Batters.
4.
Chairman, this application has been refused by 9 votes to 6.
Thank you
Name
very
recorded,
much.
Chairman. Could I have my name recorded, please?
Okay, we move on now to our final application for today. It's application 4 on the agenda, PA 20.
I couldn't find anything related to on there to file application for today.
Sorry about that. PA 20/06748. Land north of Cobbler's Cottage, St Judy, Bodmin. The case is, or the application is presented by Amy Williams. Good morning to you, Amy.
Good afternoon, Chair. Thank you.
Oh, yes, afternoon. Beg your pardon. Yes.
That's okay. I'll just share the screen a second.
Yes, can see that clearly.
Lovely. This is application agenda item number 4.4, land north of Cobbler's Cottage, St Judy. The application is for a single low-carbon self-custom build dwelling. The key issues in determining this application refers to the principle of development and the accessibility. As you can see here, this is a site location plan showing the application site in context with the village. And this is therefore just a more zoomed in version of that application site. A Google aerial imagery of the site in question. This is the existing site plan and the proposed site plan showing the location of the proposed dwelling. Proposed elevations, floor plan, and then these are photographs taken of the site in question. This is showing the northern boundary of the application site, and then the southern boundary looking towards the host dwelling, Cobbler's Cottage. This is the existing access point which is proposed to be used for the proposed new dwelling. And this has been taken off Google imagery again, and this is a photo of Redvale Lane with St Judy Village at the top of the photo and the application site to the left. In terms of the balance of considerations of this application, it's considered that the creation of a dwelling in this location would provide an additional home and add to the housing stock, which leads to an economic and social benefit. However, it is viewed that the site is located outside of the defined settlement of St Judy, and as such would introduce a new form of development within the open countryside with associated landscape impact and accessibility issues. The application is therefore recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Amy. We have no objectors on this one. The parish council are not in attendance, so we go straight to Simon Ricks, who hopefully is on the line. Simon?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi,
Good
can
morning
you hear
to you. You have 3 minutes, Simon. We will give you 30 seconds warning before the end of the 3 minutes. And if you can hold afterwards in case there are any questions for clarification purposes. Okay, so when you're ready, away you go.
Thank you, Chairman. It's nice to talk to everyone. I'm representing the applicants who wish to build a single house in their own garden. I'll be focusing entirely on planning policy matters here. First, on the development boundary issue, Cornwall planning guidance says that important matters to consider in defining a development boundary include the presence of definite boundaries, landscape features and existing development. The development boundary for St Tudy that we are suggesting takes into account the definite boundary of Redvale Road to the east, the stream and Cornish hedge landscape features to the south and west respectively, as well as Cobbler's Cottage itself and the neighbouring developments. We would argue that these firm boundaries developments all outweigh any nebulous perception of character change as defined by roadside vegetation that the officer report referred to. Cornwall's planning guidance also says that the settlement boundary, the settlement side of a boundary can and often does consist of lower density housing. On the issue of previously developed land, it has been accepted that the site is currently used as a residential garden. This may not have been formalised, but given the photographic evidence, the applicant's statement about them using it as a garden for 15 years and their willingness to sign a statutory declaration to this effect, at least on the balance of probability, it's clear that the garden is currently lawful and thus for the purposes of your decision today, it does constitute previously developed land. Regarding sustainability, many pedestrians regularly walk past the site to the centre of St Tudy, including the applicants and their daughter's many friends. And the applicants have confirmed that ramblers, dog walkers, cyclists and runners pass their property along the road in question every day. In terms of the gradient of this route, only a very short section of it has any discernible slope. We have measured the gradient at the steepest point to be 0.8%, which is less steep than the 20% recommended maximum gradient for wheelchairs. In terms of pavements and street lighting, conditions have been suggested to cover these issues if required. Regarding access to services and facilities, you will note that there is indeed a well-stocked local shop, post office, pub, and a school all within walking distance of the site. So in summary, we've reviewed the facts and it seems
30
clear to
seconds
us
remaining.
that first, the proposal site could round off the village as per Policy 3, given that there's Cornish hedge on the boundaries. Second, it is previously developed land in or next to St Tudy, so compliant with Policy 3 as well. Third, it is sustainably located previously developed land as per Policy 21A of the local plan. And fourth, it would increase building density and have access to services and facilities as per Policy 21C of the local plan. In our view, all three are true.
I'm afraid that's your time there, Simon. I'm afraid that's the 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if you hold it for a moment, in case there are any questions of clarification. Any questions of clarification for the agent? Stephen, Councillor Rushworth, your hand is up. For clarification only, please.
Certainly. I just wanted to clarify. Cornwall Highways Department have confirmed to me in an email, which I've sent on to Mr. Ricks, that they could install 4 streetlights leading right the way down to service that property and the 4 properties further down below. And a quote was submitted. Could Mr. Ricks confirm that his clients would be happy to accept that as a condition of planning if you were in mind to approve this application?
And of course, you do have the highways officer in attendance on this one, Steve.
Well, I got it from Oliver Jones.
Oh yeah, no, I was only going to say the highways officer is in attendance.
Okay, whether he knows about it or not, I don't know. But
right.
I've got an email confirming.
No chance to answer that one, Simon.
Yeah, I've spoken to my client about that, and they are happy to accept a condition to work towards installing those streetlights. That's absolutely fine.
Fine, thank you. Are there any other questions for clarification purposes of the speaker, please? Can't see any on my screen. Vice Chair, is that correct?
Correct, Chairman.
Thank you very much in that case, Simon, for attending. You obviously, as you're aware, you can watch it or watch the results and the discussions on the screen as it's being recorded live. So thank you for attending.
Thank you very much.
We now go to questions of the big ones. We now go to the divisional member, Councillor Rushworth.
Thank you, Chairman.
You have 5 minutes, at which time I will expect you to have wound down.
Okay, thank you, Chairman, members. Firstly, well, before I start, I'd just like to say that Councillor Fairman eloquently described how the new modern way of living in villages can be sustainable through communications and everything, so I won't go any further on that subject. I'd just like to comment on the parish council, the vote on this application. That was 4 against, 3 in support and 3 abstentions. At the time of the meeting, there was a very strong comments on the council website accusing the applicants of exaggerating their health conditions. The parish St Judy councillors do not normally abstain on applications, from my experience, and since then the comments have been removed from the council website. The officer has put great weight on the 150-metre stretch of road which is unlit until you get to the entrance of Wetheringham Lane. Obviously, the ability for you to apply a condition is now been established. The applicants, through their agent, have confirmed that they're happy to fund the new street lights down to the entrance. This would be a great benefit to the 4 dwellings just below the property. If you are in mind to approve this application, I'm sure they would accept the condition. I've already said that. The site is unquestionably within the curtilage of the host dwelling, and the agent has confirmed that his clients will sign personal declarations to support that claim. So by nature, this site will be classed as previously developed land and so conform to policy 3 of the local plan. St Judy has developed over many years by ribbon development spread along the 5 lanes that merge the village centre. There are many parcels of land that break this ribbon profile. That's inevitable over the years will be developed. It is only in recent years that small estates have been developed off the unique road network. 4 homes below this application site form an important part in making the village sustainable. And we've already heard about the number of people who walk into the village from those locations. On page 75, paragraph 22, the report states that the property is not located in a suitable location that gives the ability to walk into the town, into the village to pick up sustainable modes of transport. Unfortunately, there are no bus services that operate to the village. The bus service only runs on the B3266 Camelford to Bodmin Road. This location of this application is closer to the bus services than most of the homes in the village. This committee recently approved a 2-home extension to a previously approved application for 3 homes, some 250 yards down Wetheringham Lane, and the location that is considered further away from the main road junction that this application refers to. The parish council objected to that application on the grounds that the buildings were in open countryside. They did not consider that point for this application, and the main concerns that they were on drainage and water pressure, all of those that can be again dealt with by condition. In that application, the officer did not mention the unsuitable issues that have been mentioned in this application, i.e. the walk into the town centre, the long dark walk at night, and the lack of footpaths within the village. All of these have been highlighted as the main reason for refusal in this application, even though the application is further, even though the approved application is further away than from the centre of the village than this site. I've attended many meetings during my role as a local councillor and helped in the early days of preparing their neighbourhood plan. The majority of objections and the responses back from residents of the village are to try and prevent large-scale developments and let the village grow organically with a style of development. So I hope the committee will look favourably and give the applicants a chance to build their retirement home to cope with their medical situations in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Steve, may I ask you, you made some comments at the beginning with regards to matters spoken about the applicants, which were not planning matters, of course. And secondly, were you at that meeting at the time that was said? And according to our agenda, it was they objected to rounding. It was not rounding off the village, and they objected to draining issues and privacy issues, and objected by a majority.
I'm not saying that they didn't mention them, but the main focus was on drainage and water issues. I'm not saying that this is rounding off or infill. I'm saying it is previously developed land. and there will be.
Yeah, that's okay. It was only the fact that we had some other issues come in, which of course are not planning issues. And I just wanted to clarify that there were other issues that were planning issues that they were actually opposing it for.
I think they were mentioned by one councillor, but
right, but that's okay. I mean, it's not planning, so I don't want to go down that road. But I'm just clarifying what's in front of us there. We have some hands up now. Is this questions of Councillor Rushworth or the planning officers? I've got Derek up first.
Councillor Rushworth, it's just I'm slightly confused still about the situation of the parish council. In the document, it looks like they're clearly against by a majority. Is that a case?
Yes, I confirm that. All right, thank you.
Yeah, Councillor Fitter next.
Yeah, Stephen, in your presentation, you said that the applicants were prepared to sign a statement to say this was previous developed land. But can you just confirm for me, because you know the applicants, they actually don't have a certificate of lawfulness, presumably, to substantiate that sort of statement, because it's sort of horse before the cart, so to speak, the applicant. So they would need a certificate of lawfulness, wouldn't they, in that effect?
I'm not sure whether they've got a certificate of lawfulness, but you know, by the photographs, it's obvious that this is their garden and it has been for many years. They've lived there over 14 years, and the affidavit would be required if they put in for a certificate of lawfulness. I agree.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We've got hands still up there. Derek, did you want another question on general question of the? Because we're on to questions of the officer now.
No, thank you.
Any questions of the officer, please? We have. Did you have a questions, Steve, or is your hand still up?
I would just like the officer to confirm that there were statements on the website that were removed, and I've no reason. I don't know why they were removed, but they were quite.
Sorry, which issues are removed?
There was personal comments about the applicant.
Yeah, I don't think that plays a part in this at the moment. These are questions of clarification.
They were there at the time of the parish meeting. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yes, but this is clarification for planning purposes of the applications in front of us, rather than side issues with regards to comments made against anyone, any individual. So, do you have questions for clarification?
No, I apologise, Chairman.
Thank you. Right, across the Neil Burton, Councillor Burton.
Yeah, thank you for that. In my division, this is a question for the officer. In my division, I've got several people now with ride-on mowers, basically fields near their property, and it's like a semi-garden, really. It's not a managed garden. It's just they career around on their ride-on mowers every week, and I just wonder how the planning officers view that, really, because it's not a garden. It's just somebody doesn't want anybody's sheep to eat their grass, basically. How do you deal with that? Because this must be a similar situation.
Well, if an application is submitted for a certificate of lawfulness to prove a domesticated use of agricultural land, then obviously we would be looking at evidence that's submitted before us. I mean, it's difficult to kind of question or to give an advice for different plots, because you're going to have different information submitted in front of you, but in most cases we would be looking at imagery that we have available to us through kind of the Google imagery that does give us a good indication of how land has changed in character and form over the years. We obviously would rely on parish councils, local people to advise if changes have been made, but each one is looked at on its own merits, so it's quite difficult to give a round kind of answer for every case in scenarios, really.
If I could just add in there, Chris, it's Gavin Smith speaking. If I could
yes, Gavin. Yes.
It's I agree with you completely, Councillor Burton, that mowing the lawns isn't the only indication of a change of use. It can be an indicator, but it's not the sole indication. We need indication of an actual change of use on the land, which would be residential activity, residential paraphernalia. That's what we'd be looking for. So I agree completely that that isn't the be end and end all if you submit evidence proving that you're mowing the lawns. Thank you, Chairman.
That was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. We have John Fitter, followed by Derek Holly again, please. John.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Chairman. I just to the officer. I've two concerns. The first thing I'd clarify is that there is no certificate of lawfulness on this land. So at this moment in time, from the authority's point of view, it is basically undeveloped land. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's no planning history to indicate any certificates being granted.
Right. Fantastic. Thank you very much. And the second thing is that I was slightly concerned about the suggestion to perhaps give weight to approval the erection of 4 street lights, because this could be challenged under our policies, because light pollution and taking the urban form of the community in the hamlet out into the countryside, which would be against policy. Is that not correct?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely correct. One of the officer's judgments would be that introducing additional lighting into what we consider to be outside the settlement into the rural character is going to be therefore detrimental to that character. So we wouldn't really be seeking that kind of introduction of more lighting into that country lane.
And so in actual fact, if we were minded, if the committee was minded to approve it, that is one of the things that hopefully the planning department will resist, because I certainly concur that we don't want to introduce more urban forms out into the countryside with street lighting and light pollution. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Derek, you're next up.
Partly answered, but is Paul still there? And can I ask him, was he party to this discussion?
What do you mean, Paul Steen?
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul, you still there?
Can you give us your opinion, please, Paul?
Yeah, Paul.
Everybody, afternoon. I was here and I left, and now I'm back. And so, thank you, Chairman and Councillor Holly. I didn't assess this application. I'm not aware of the conversation regarding street lighting. So, given I've just been asked to return back quickly to ask this question, I'm not sure I've got anything information-wise to back that up or otherwise to hand. I'd have to go off and find out who those conversations were with.
Okay, thank you. Can I just assume, though, that as you're the officer in charge today, that if there's something material for this application, you would have been informed about it?
We try to. If it's linked to development, the various highways departments do try and keep me in the loop, or colleagues in the loop. But obviously, if it's not apparent, then it won't be. The assumption would be that the applicant has.
Yeah, okay. I just want to know what weight to give to it. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, sorry, Chair, could I just interject and just say that there haven't really been any discussions between officers and the applicant regarding street lighting. I believe that might have been done just kind of from the applicant themselves, direct to highways.
Fine. Thank you, Amy. Appreciate that. Steve, your hand, is it still up from last time, or have you got another question for clarification?
No, I forgot to take my hand down. Thank you.
Okay, fine. In that case, it appears on my screen that there are no other questions for clarification purposes. That is correct. You confirm that, please, Vice Chair?
Yeah, correct, Chairman.
Thank you. In that case, we go into open debate. Who would like to start off the open debate, please? Councillor Fitter, John.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In view of what's gone on in the other 3 agendas, I certainly will not be supporting this application. It's in the open countryside. It's going to introduce an urban form outside in the countryside. It is not previously developed land. And if the applicant had been really confident at this stage, then possibly the answer would have been for them to have applied for a certificate of lawfulness and to sort of put the horse before the cart, sort of thing. And we've dealt with the light pollution element, because certainly this is something which I think a number of people possibly in the community would object to. And for the reasons stated in the officer's report, I will not be supporting this application for approval, but supporting refusal as set out. Thank you, sir.
Would you be proposing refusal as set out?
I will propose refusal as set out, sir, clearly in the open.
Fine, thank you. Any other speakers in this wishing to come in? Everyone seems very reluctant today for some reason. Very quiet day for speakers. Richard Pugh, welcome, Richard. Over to you.
I've listened to the debate and everything, obviously, today, and for the reasons that John's just said, I'll second his proposal.
Fine, thank you. In that case, I can't see any other hands up wishing to come into this debate, and that's correct. Can you confirm that, please, Vice Chair, again?
That's correct, Chairman.
Thank you very much. In that case, we go towards the proposal, which is proposed by Councillor Fitter, seconded by Councillor Pugh, that we go in line with recommendations of the officer. Over to you, Rowena.
Thank you. When I call your name, please state whether you are for, against or abstaining from the motion of refusal. Councillor Burden.
Refusal as set out.
Councillor Lennox Boyd.
For.
Councillor Eddy.
For refusal.
Councillor Flashman.
Against.
Councillor Fitter.
Refusal as set out.
Councillor Holly.
For refusal.
Councillor Jordan.
For.
Councillor Long.
For refusal.
Councillor Simmons.
For refusal as set out.
Councillor Taylor.
For refusal.
Councillor Pascoe.
For refusal.
Councillor Pugh.
For refusal.
Councillor Tamlin.
For.
Councillor Parsons.
For.
And Councillor Batters.
For.
Thank you. This application has been refused by 14 votes to 1, Chairman.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of our agenda for today. If you can hold whilst Emma confirms that the live stream is off. By all means, if you wish to disappear now, you're welcome to. But can we reserve any comments until after Emma has confirmed this, please? And Adrian, would you like to hang on? And Davina, please, as well. I'd like to have a word with the two of you, if I may. Thank you.
Chairman, it's Emma Code, meeting producer. I'll let you know as soon as the live stream's been turned off.
Thank you, Emma.
Mr. Chairman, it's Derek. After the live stream has been switched off, I'd rather like if members could stay for a second. I've got a procedural matter to raise.
Yes, by all means.
Not relevant to any application. Thank you.
Thank you.